Welcome to Live Readings. I'm your host, Alec. Tonight, we celebrate the wonderful authors, poets, and artists who have been a part of the One True Promotion and Drop a Line community. This is our show. Welcome. Tonight, we begin with Mr. James Ellerby, who is our first poet. We are reading Beyond the Event Horizon. Let's dive right in. Computer love. We made love without touching, the blood rushing to my phallus like water over the leaves in New Orleans. It seems like I can be with her forever in my mind. Time is non-existent. Listening to every word typed might be taboo, but it helps me get through and makes me feel whole again, exciting like original sin. I don't know when this happened, but it was meant to be. Two minds exploring each other like biology. I envision her astrology with every curve mapped out until the energy is zapped out of me like an all-night orgy. But she is not in front of me. She is behind a computer screen, but it seems so real. Oh, the way she makes me feel. Not worthy. You look into my eyes, searching for my soul, so I let your quest continue. But I think to myself, I'm not worthy, and this is true. I look into your soul, and nothing that comes from me could be as beautiful as you, could be as good as you. You are the sweetest of sweets, so our souls could never meet, but I envision anyway. I wish that on any day I could be the paintbrush to your canvas, and I can't stand this, but I know that I'm not worthy. We are halfway through Not Worthy by James Ellerby. First, we're going to show you a little promo we made just for him, and every author gets one. Take it away, Andrew. We continue with Not Worthy by James Ellerby. You could have 1,000 men better than I, but you choose me to be by your side. You are the highest of high. A rock bottom is where I reside. So I realize that I'm not worthy, but I can't dismiss the feeling of wanting one kiss from the lips that sailed 1,000 ships and caused lunar eclipses. But I'm not worthy, and I understand. So I fantasize about you taking my hand and lead me to paradise. But I'm not worthy, so only my thoughts can suffice. This next one is called Just What? What do you do when there's no more conversations between the physical explorations, when there's nothing but silence and blank faces and no traces of intelligence, where nothing said is relevant in the situation at hand, when the sex is minimal, only replaced by subliminal messages like, not tonight, I'm tired, honey. What do you do when the jokes are no longer funny, but offensive, and got you on the defensive to the point when you shout, what was that all about? What do you do when you can't stand to be in the same space, when you are tired of the same face, looking through you, not at you? What do you do when he or she has had enough, when he or she is packing their stuff to go live at a friend's house? What do you do when he or she doesn't act like your spouse and doesn't open his or her mouth anymore? What else can be done when you no longer have fun, when you are no longer the one whom he desires, or no longer the one to light her fire? What do you do at the end when you can't be friends, when you can no longer pretend the relationship was worth it? What can you do? What can be done? What do you do at the end? Nothing. Next we have Monogamous. I think I lost you somewhere in a dream. Something is not what it seems. As if my definition is not what it means, and I'm struggling to see what lies beneath. But I'm not Harrison Ford, so something had to seep through, like something leaked through the fabric of our relationship. Monogamy, turning the lust into a minus, and trust me, it's not easy. It just means the temptation will always be there, only hidden. Was expressing my feelings unforgiving? An original sin? Was it safe then Do the floodgates ever open? We were coasting. Now something put on the brakes. Or I must have never taken your breath away, or at least not the way you took mine. I want to find your heart. I want to start something, but my back is against the wall, only for my feelings to crawl in a corner and become idle. Sometimes just hearing your voice is vital to my survival. Are you too complex? Are you too complex? And I too primal? Time, time, time. The one thing that I truly hate about life is time. Everything consists of time. Like, she can't go out on a date because she doesn't have the time. She should have said, why should I waste my time on someone like you? We tend to relate time to all types of stupid stuff like, funny how time flies when you're having fun. I don't see anything fun about that. If you were having fun, wouldn't you want it to last and not be a thing of the past? Or, here's a classic, okay, it's time for me to go. No, it is time that I leave your lame butt because I think of better things to do with my time. You've got to excuse me, but I just hate that word time or anything that has time in it. Like, better luck next time, or do you have the time? Yes, I do, but I don't plan on giving it to you. How about this one? Time is on my side. Man, time has never been on my side. Time has been kicking the crap out of me. I just want to put time in a headlock and slam time to the floor. Stomp the dog mess out of time till I can't take any more. I know I'm getting a little beside myself, but time started it. Time has been winning since the beginning of time, whenever that is, because we are the ones who created it in the first place. It's more like we have created a monster. And above all things, the number one statement that I hate containing time is, I guess I see you next lifetime. More like never, because that is exactly what a lifetime is. Time could kiss my butt. And we will conclude our reading of James with Nomad in No Man's Land. Time keeps slip-sliding away like payday, and no one seems to hear my cries for Mayday. So I wait for ISIS to resurrect my soul from this crisis. They say life is priceless, but it keeps sticking me in the butt like thorns. My people tell me I was destined for greatness, but I've been damned since the day I was born. So I keep holding on to loosely knitted dreams that seem intangible. For life won't let you take on more than you can handle. And I can light a candle for every lesson not learned, like a glass of gin and tonic. The truth bums my throat, but I must cope with reality. I am trying to do right in this world, but these devils keep on battling me, systematically breaking me down to nothingness, consumed with stress as I go from having a job to joblessness, because life is like the roulette table, and I don't think I'm able to keep my head above water. Sometimes I think I ought to pull the trigger. I tell my wife I am trying, but all she sees is another shiftless, go figure. It seems the more I keep wasting my time, the more I keep losing my mind, trying to find the days I never had. Whoever thought life would be this bad? Call me a nomad in no man's land, going nowhere fast, crying out to God. Oh, I hope this pain won't last. What have I done to make all this misfortune come to pass? I'm waiting for the ravens to rock me to sleep. Call me a nomad in no man's land. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. That is Beyond the Event Horizon by Mr. James Ellerby. Thank you so much, James, for providing this wonderful book. Next up, we have the wonderful Kira Elise. We have just one poem from Kira tonight, but my goodness, it is a good one. It is called A Most Revealing Decision. A decision rears its head in the near, tough as nails, with fears of fails. For what piece of art could redeem me as smart in the eyes of my distant peers? Lunar rainbows felt insubstantial, and soul waters was faltered. Notes of plants couldn't express the depths of my prowess. Cold, rainy days thought of better ways. Bird watching, understandably, was simple analogy. Blood-red sunsets couldn't wake the readers into unrest. Have my talents gone to such wastes? Pipe dreams and validation, all written in depression. Reflections and koi ponds didn't get the minds going, and silhouettes in twilight would make me sleep to read. Your writing could only impress you, my dear. Run away to the stars as if you ever ran that far. Celestial plains so neat, writing as if she's experienced this feat. 1127 speaks of representation, but numbers make no occasion. Truly, has your mind ever worked a little farther to be yourself, not your honor? Music may make you feel provocative, but those words are only self-deprecative. And warm baths may clear your mind, but who wants to hear that unrefined? Denim jacket's hidden message only makes you seem that desperate, and a tale of a moth could only incite a singular cough of delight. Your work is a bit too short to be considered a quirk, and your overarching themes leave not much to dream. I enjoyed the free verse better than that rhyming forced. Too bad you couldn't write it after you tried the rhyming gambit. Make up every excuse to run away from your truth, and shower yourself with diversions, because you are the only one it's hurting. Think of why you don't deserve someone's time, and consider that divine. Hold yourself down, so you are the only one you could astound. Live in fear of judgment, yet critique yourself till you'll have no merit. Lose all motivation because failure could put you at the beginning of it. Procrastinate all deciding because facing your abhorrence shows cowardice. What do you care what others think when you yourself are your own worst critic? But the question remains, deserving of an answer of true. If you feel this way, why didn't you stop writing and subdue? You know yourself to a fault and feel the trouble in your heart, but your anxiety clouds your view and damages the greatness that is you. You are more than your fears could ever declare, because your work impresses you enough to continually stare, and deep within, you know what you could write could surprise everyone you so wish to impress without tearing yourself down in your eyes. Fellow artists, please heed my advice. Partial eyes only look twice, from the one looking on the inside. Too shallow are we to judge our own beauty. Let art shine first and cast doubt to the third. Be known as the one not afraid to share their soul. Thank you, Kira, for that beautiful piece. Next up, we have one of my favorites, Lois Rose Sterling. We are back with L.R. Sterling, and tonight we are reading out of Apothecary Bloom. Thank you so much for contributing this, Lois. Here we go. This is from Rose-Colored Glass, Part 1 of Apothecary Bloom. Evening walks on blue flannel skies, skipping rocks on the surface of dirt road memories. I fuse the music of grateful autumn wind with the afterthoughts of winter solstice, knowing I'd cross paths with wanderlust again. I didn't fall for this unkempt hair, or the ink on his arms that told stories he wasn't ready to tell. Not the scars on his hands that only come from foolish boys on warm summer days. Not the way I saw the forest in his eyes when the sun hit them perfectly. Not the firmness of the arms that held me at night, fingers in my hair as he kissed me goodnight. No, I fell for the softness of his gaze, crippling my soul to pieces as delicately as fallen petals. I fell for the realization that years from now, when I have grown old and tired and my memory somehow escapes me, my heart will always come back to him. I only ask that you love me without regret, that you accept that I am broken and may not last, that you look upon me with adoration, that you fight to keep me safe. I have lost my light, but I have spent my life in waiting, waiting for you, longing for you, writing poems for you, dreaming of you. I have waited for you to take me, dreamt of your lips pressed upon my cold mouth. As I inhale a soft sigh, patiently, I have waited for you, and I shall be homesick for you, even in heaven. How I long to touch you. No, darling, not in the way you think. I long to touch you with the taste of my pen. Unbutton your body and seize your heart. How I long for you to take me to bed with you. No, darling, not in that way. I long for your hands upon my folded pages, my words at the edge of your lips. How I long to satisfy your longings. No, darling, not in the way of the flesh. I long to ease your restless nights, undress your mind, and fill it with a bewitching ink. Leave you so enraptured that you crave even my empty pages, so long as they're in my hands. Poetry equals midnight scribbles of last-minute thoughts and emotions, while my soul is half sleeping, pieces of me that I lost along the way that I forgot to jot down when it mattered most, equals right as rain. She was not one to be tamed. Her passion can never be bridled. She is riveting. She is wild. A mind raw with magic. She is a poet. If anything, I only wish to be the tattered memory of the girl you stole glances at with a sheepish grin and flushed cheeks, the one you never spoke to, but who still haunts you in your dreams. There's romance in December, snowy kiss extract, balsam stirred and weathered marrow, mistletoe crooning to touch us both, crossbones enlivened in my chest, symptomatic of red and green plaid, damned to the memory of frozen feet, upon winter's fate. And we will conclude our reading with these next two. Never accept the fate of false friends, even if it leaves you in a dark room by candlelight, a cigarette in your mouth and a pen in your hand. You don't need an audience to watch you fall, but your fans will stare in awe to watch you rise. There is no shame in solitude. Sometimes when the world becomes too loud or has dealt you more pain than your heart can handle, you need to retreat to that forest of quiet within your mind. Go for a walk. Live there for a time if you must. The world will be waiting to see you again. Be kind to yourself. That is Apothecary Bloom by L.R. Sterling. Thank you so much, Lois. That was an absolute delight. Next up, we have Alexis Petway. By the way, Sam Rubenstein is here in the audience, and I would like him to know that we will be starting at 8:22, not 8:20. But don't worry, it's only an extra 2 minutes, and we will have plenty of time for you, my friend. We are going to read from Alexis from the book Wedding Season Chronicles. This is something I am very interested in, as I am recently engaged. To the bride. Congratulations! You are on or about to embark on the amazing journey of planning your wedding day and the wonderful journey of marriage. This is a beautiful journey, and I am here to provide some insight on a few things from my experience that will help make it better. My first piece of advice is put together a team of dependable and organized individuals to help you with the various tasks. It's not easy juggling all the tasks associated with a wedding, and a small team will take some tasks off of you and your fiance's plate, or make some tasks easier for you. These individuals, or individual, if you prefer just one, should be appointed to help you and assist with various tasks outside of what responsibilities you give your bridesmaids. Your bridesmaids can even be your small team. Within your team, I recommend having one person be your wedding secretary, if you will. Guests can bombard you with questions, drama, grievances, and concerns about your wedding, sometimes not realizing the many other things you must focus on and make decisions for. In having an appointed wedding secretary, this person be a liaison for your guests' questions. This will cut back on you being bombarded with questions from every angle. Your appointed secretary should be knowledgeable in your plans so that they may answer questions. And if they need to ask or confirm anything with you, it is just the one person asking instead of multiple people. This person can even be your maid or matron of honor. Putting together the right team will make a world of difference with the planning as well as the wedding day. If your budget allows, hire a wedding planner. A wedding planner has expertise and knowledge that will aid in planning every single detail and even be there the day of to make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible. Many times, wedding planners have concoctions with DJs, florists, photographers, and various other businesses that service weddings. A wedding planner works to keep each aspect of the wedding organized, including you. A wedding planner will take a lot of the footwork in planning a wedding and can also act as a liaison for guest inquiries and questions. For destination weddings, I highly recommend a travel professional as well as a wedding planner. Destination weddings have additional components to them that make having a travel professional and wedding planner essential to the planning and organization of guest accommodations. Many resorts provide an on-site wedding planner at no additional cost. My next piece of advice revolves around choosing your bridesmaids. You should consider multiple things when deciding who you'll be asking to be part of your bridal party. Ask yourself, why are you choosing this person to be in your bridal party? Choose wisely when picking your bridesmaids, especially your maid and/or matron of honor. I have seen and heard stories of friendships lost in the midst of emotions and thoughts becoming heightened within bridal parties during the journey leading up to the wedding day. I have seen bridesmaid counts start at one number and end with less, all for various reasons. Riveting. That is from Wedding Season Chronicles by Alexis Petway. Thank you very much, Alexis. And now, folks, if you are watching on Instagram, I encourage you to take a trip over to Facebook because we are now bringing on Mr. Sam Rubenstein for his guest reading. Welcome, Sam.
Hello. How's it going? Long time no see.
Long time no see. Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
All right, then I will leave it to you. Take it away.
All right, so this first poem is about the 2020. Make it stop! Thank you. This next poem is also about 2020 and is a little bit longer than that. It goes like this. You're not doing anything right now, and neither am I, and contrary to every screaming voice blasting in my head, we might be okay. It might be fun to sit here and watch this world burn from the safety of an overpriced studio apartment. I can make eggs and you'll pick your favorite record, and then maybe after breakfast we can sit and watch the fire dancing in my window and think we'll be okay. Thank you. That's called Watching Fire. This next poem is in the opposite direction of that. This is Publish This Poem. To the middle-aged balding man sitting in his basement. Hey. Or to those 10, 20-somethings sitting around a table drinking chai teas and matcha lattes, or whatever those are. Or to the retired English professor who definitely had me as a student and probably wasn't a huge fan of my work. To whoever is out there reading this, publish this poem. Please? Listen, I don't want to come across as pushy or desperate, unless you're into that, you know. But like, this poem's just so damned publishable for whatever kind of literary magazine, journal, or online content you're trying to develop. You want hyperbole? I got hyperbole for days. You want a metaphor? This poem is a metaphor. It's as simple as a simile, and if you publish me, we could dream up some rhyme schemes and teeter across the meter till we tick-tock the clock on all of our consonants and do all but alliterate till we obliterate the page. See? Okay, listen, I get it. Maybe that sounds a bit too cliche for you. You know, it's not what you're looking for. It's fair. You're trying to create something brooding and dark, appeal to the younger crowd, the Zoomers. So you need something more gloomy. Okay, all right. It's not hard to miss this. The hunger, the pangs ringing from your chest as you beat yourself bloody over every trope. Art is the cross and the thing we've nailed it to as well. A burden that we carry until we can't walk anymore. There's too much weight to hold on to. Too much pain to bear. Did you see that shit? Come on. Do you feel the passion in that? That's so publishable. This is so marketable. It's so fresh. There's a cleanliness there that leaves you feeling safe in your little comfort zone. You're so safe. You almost forget that there's a guy on the other side of the screen. Eyes tired from staring in the dark, fingers heavy, body tense, caught over a keyboard, praying, hoping maybe this might be the one that can finally work. Thank you. This next poem is gonna be a little bit different. This is called Groundhog's Day. There are too many groundhogs on Groundhog Day that did not do their jobs. They just slept through the most sacred of American holidays. Comfortably, they hid, quietly hibernating, almost as if they don't care that they're ruining such an important day. You know what? Let me tell you, that kind of selfishness will not fly. But the groundhogs act like they don't care about this human race. They're just content to sleep underground in hibernation. There seems to be a certain lack of respect for their own country. Respect which is needed to maintain order. Sanctity for our great nation. Like, what would we do if Christopher Columbus just never celebrated Columbus Day? Exactly. Think about that, snowflakes. Groundhogs need to get their shit together because we can't be waiting on them to tell us the weather. Sincerely, a disgruntled American patriot. I struggle with keeping a straight face for that poem. That's called Groundhog's Day. It's the closest I'll ever get to writing anything remotely political. I got time for two more, and so I'm going to end with two that I really enjoy performing a lot. So this first one, if you were watching Drop a Line on Thursday, you've heard it. It is called A Tea Party with Death. I invited Death to my 2 o'clock tea party, and this time he actually came to see me. He's always polite as he took off his shoes before entering softly into my room. Quietly, he took a seat between Fluffy Bridges the bunny and the amazing Captain Pete. Death chatted politely with all of our guests, wearing my favorite tiara inside my best treasure chest. He smiled and giggled and drank his tea neat, and when the party was over, we played hide and seek. And when the afternoon faded and day turned to eve, my new best friend Death told me it was time we should leave. So I grabbed my small hat so I could cover my head and unplugged the machines helping me stay in bed. I got up quite slowly and felt the cold of the floor, and then my friend and I, Death, made our way towards the door. Okay, so this poem that I'm going to end with, this is going to be the last one. It is from my book, To the Spider in My House. Please buy it. It's online at Amazon, or if you care, it's on samsdumbface.com. That's samsdumbface.com. And this is the poem I always like to finish with. This is Leave the Light On. Please leave the light on. After the sun has disappeared from the sky and the streetlights have all gone out. After dinner was cooked, eaten, and cleaned up. When everyone's favorite shows have ended and the kids were all tucked in and dreaming. After the dog was walked and the games were over and every other person out there has called it a night. Please leave the light on. Because I promise you, I'm coming home. Please buy this book. Shameless plugs. Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Sam, love it. Great job, my friend.
Having me.
Thank you so much for coming by. We loved having you. Come again.
Of course. All right, I'll see you.
See you later. All right, folks, we are back in business. Everybody hear me okay? We are going to break into our authors now. Next up, we have The Other Side by Justin Gladstone. Prologue. December 9th, 2009, Wednesday. The Earthshine Facility, Therapist's Office, 7:10 a.m. Why must we go through this every single time you come here, Allie? I don't want to hear about your family. For a girl with such a lean build, you sure speak of yourself a lot. Now tell me about that boy. Dr. Alor Igor shifts her reading glasses, then glances at her clipboard, containing a checklist filled with each spoken subject. She keeps this close to her chest. Allie fiddles with her shoulder-length, smooth black hair. Her angry face avoids eye contact with the condescending woman's fierce, piercing gaze. Before taking the therapist's demand into consideration, Allie delves into her memory of Leon, causing an abundance of feelings to resurface. Leon has a sharp jawline and brown skin. His short black hair is styled in a backwards comb-over, matching with his dark brown eyes. The memory at hand levels Leon as an ordinary person. Leon's baby-faced appearance often causes others to perceive him as an agreeable weakling. Her feelings and memory are tightly linked. They retrace themselves back to the anguish wrought from Leon. She considers his many faces. The last one she could never forget was his sinister smirk and scowl. His impassible restraint and her inability to utter words had made his body seem misleadingly slender. He's none of your business, Allie says with a scowl. Alor wags her finger at her. Now, for Leon to graduate, you need to play your part. I already gave you the amulet. You just have one more thing to do. You've had only good things to say about him. Let's hear about the important details. The bad. I feel that he has a dichotomy. Dr. Igor clicks the top of her black ink pen. A dichotomy, you say? Allie nods twice, then gulps. With someone like you or my friends, I would feel like I am speaking to you and only you. However, throughout all my years knowing Leon, I always felt like there was more than one person there, almost like another presence. To make matters worse, I felt that ominous presence on the night of... The sun creeps away from the cracks of the blinds as Allie's words cease. Go on, Alor says as she rolls her eyes in disgust, watching Allie look soullessly at the intricate designs of the antique throw rug under her feet. Oh, well, I guess we've made some progress. Have you ever attempted to confront him about this supposed feeling? Allie responds with her fists balled, holding tears of fury back. Yes. He called me by a different name and then tried to rape. Allie's right hand scurries to her mouth. She drops her head and gazes at the carpet once more, cowering from the pain of her frightening memory. 2 minutes of silence hang. Well? Dr. Igor asks, as she shifts her gray eyes from her clipboard and the girl's masked, dismayed red eyes. The sun shirks even more, making it more difficult to see Alor's pitch-black lipstick. The fading light causes Alor's brown skin to lose its highlight. Allie can no longer see her long, coal-black hair tied into a bun. A few more seconds pass. Allie regains control of her emotions and begins to speak with her normal, soft tone. I haven't spoken to him since. I can barely stand to look at him, just the thought of him. She glances around. Are we done yet? I want to go home. Dr. Igor scoffs, ascends from her chair, and stomps towards the door. Off with you then, she yells in a high-pitched, booming voice, causing Allie to scurry for the doorway. Oh, and Allie, be a dear and shut the door as you leave. Part 1. The voice in my head. I remember an unusual about my past. It helps even more since I can just stand and watch the inevitable happen once again. Memories from way back when have forever been etched in my heart. Strange how inaccurate certain events had turned out in my mind. This book itself is the correction to all the error that my mind wrote. Reminiscence tastes so bitter because it feels like it was all brought upon us just yesterday. Nostalgia is nothing but pain. Sometimes at the end of tragedy's road, one can only ask and revert to that single moment where all had went wrong. During my teen years, I recall being with my therapist, Stefano Giro. I have to admit that after my diagnosis, I was scared. I didn't know what I would become, or who for that matter. And I was most afraid of hurting the ones I loved. I heard many horror stories about those diagnosed with the supposed dreaded mental issue. I didn't want to become one of them. I thought that with the therapist's help, that it would make the pain go away. If there's anything that I remember, it's when he would ask me if I regretted being the way I was. I would answer, Mr. Jiro, this is all I've ever known. How could I just leave it behind? He would then ask, would you say you regret having split personality disorder? Whenever I tried to answer his question, a voice in my mind would begin to laugh. December 9th, 2009, Wednesday, Colorado, Aurora, the Mall, 8:35 p.m. Hey, we're reading at 8:35 p.m. It is the ending of autumn. Leaves have traces of scarlet and ruby red scattered all over the area. Snow has encapsulated the entirety of the white land. 15 miles away from the Earthshine facility are 3 of Leon's closest friends. They are shopping at the nearby mall for Leon's birthday present. I'm not paying for anything that has to do with Leon, Jacqueline whines as she untucks her long blonde hair out of her puffy winter coat. She crosses her arms and peers to a shoe store nearby. She then unzips the brown jacket to adjust to the warm mall. We're not leaving until we find him a second gift. Jason, a light-skinned boy with a short buzz cut, sharply states and stares, Why'd you come along anyway? You barely like Leon as a person. He tightens the strap on his work cap and breaks the gaze by scoping out stores worthy of visitation. Because I don't want to be bored at home, she replies, while she stomps her foot into the ground to shake the snow off her boots. Of course she didn't, Dean says in an impatient tone, while he removes the glove, smothering his greasy hands. He slumps into his oversized gray hoodie. Dean's quivering red hands break through the quilt of hair surrounding his face, allowing his eyes a chance to stare at his watch. I'll give Jason 5 more minutes to pick something out. Soon as that clock hits 8:40, we're out of here. Jason dusts the powdery snow from his work uniform shoulders as Jacqueline and Dean follow him into a gift shop with cards laid across numerous shelves. This is the 3rd store we've been in, Jacqueline whines. Jason rolls his eyes as she continues. Jason, just pick something already. I don't want to go back out there. It just can't be any gift, Jason says as he glances at his small selection of choices. Dean narrows his eyes. Sure it can. You guys are still just friends, right? Jason glowers at them both. It's not just for his birthday. Screw it. I've got homework to copy, Dean growls as he glances at the shelves with cards bearing generic congratulatory phrases. Dean randomly snatches a white card and whips it towards the clerk. The clerk doesn't notice Dean's angry presence until the spare change from his pockets rattles about the counter. The clerk is in his upper 30s, covered with razor bumps and a kindred smile. He patiently hands Dean his receipt. Jason shakes his head. I knew I shouldn't have brought you guys along for this. He looks back towards the gift shop as they walk outward to the entrance. Meh. I can always buy him something tomorrow, he mumbles. December 9th, 2009, Wednesday, Colorado, Aurora, suburbs, echoed intersection, 9:10 p.m. Remember, guys, I wasn't a part of this. Can't have Allie knowing, Jacqueline says. Whatever helps you sleep at night, Dean mutters, as he rubs his long red nose. Jason chimes in. The last thing I want is credit for that, he says as he glowers to the plastic bag in Jacqueline's hands. Besides, I think he cares less about his age and more about his status in that therapy center. It's a shame that Allie still refuses to see Leon after their incident. If she came along, I probably wouldn't have had to call off from work. I didn't think we'd spend so much time searching the markets in town. She could have been a real help. Jacqueline drops the bag with the card onto the ground. Why are they defending him? She imagines, Allie asking before choosing her next words. She hushes her voice. There's a reason she doesn't want to see him. You know, you guys should be more respectful to her wishes. She lifts her bag upwards. And that is our time for The Other Side by Justin Gladstone, this fantastic book that I love so much. Thank you very much, Justin. And next up we have Danielle Novotny, author of Remade. Chapter 1. I hated being late. Anyone who knew Aaliyah Rathburn understood that being late was among my top 5 pet peeves. I also hated reckless drivers, but today I had to be one because I was late. My Audi purred down the highway as I passed yet another driver, and I cringed knowing that I probably received one of two glances, a glare or a look of shock. No sane person should be driving the way I am today, but like I said, being late stressed me out more than having to drive like a lunatic. I looked in the rearview mirror to confirm that I received a glare, and I sighed. I swore it was not my fault that I had to drive this way. At least I managed to look presentable. Brown, wavy hair, orderly and not frizzy as it hung below my shoulders, and enough eye makeup to look classy and mature in my morning frenzy. My boss had been trying to set up this meeting for months, and of course today of all days I encountered misfortune after misfortune just on my way out of the door. The milk had gone bad, I spilled coffee on the floor, and overnight my phone didn't charge, leaving me with 20% battery life, and of course, I'd have to use the GPS on my phone just to get to the meeting. But joy of all joys, it had also snowed overnight, leaving the roads sloppy and occasionally slick. Fantastic. I shouldn't even be attending this meeting. As a junior consultant at my firm, I was always involved in setting up meetings, not actually attending them. But Frank came down with the flu yesterday, and Maria was off on vacation, which left me as the only other option. With this being my first big opportunity at 3B Consulting, building better businesses, which always struck me as simultaneously catchy and corny, I couldn't let my boss down, especially when the CEO of a company we've been trying to get work with for months had finally contacted us about meeting to discuss potential work. So now all the responsibilities fell to me. Not that I was mad about it. I loved my job. But this would be more exciting if I wasn't so flustered this morning. My fortunes lifted for the first time today as I hit the highway because there were very few cars out on the roads. Not really a surprise though, considering the weather. I took a deep breath and hit the accelerator, praying that I'd reach the office on time. I listened to the radio reports as I zoomed along just to make sure I wasn't driving straight into road closures. After half an hour of frantic driving, I knew that I only had one more exit because I could get off the highway, and then it was just 5 more minutes on back roads to the office. I couldn't help smiling as I realized that I was going to make it. A semi in the middle lane caught my eye. White trailer, blue cab. It would have escaped my attention altogether had the brake lights not lit up. At 60 miles per hour, I knew I could only tap my brakes to prevent potentially spinning out on the slick highway. So that's what I did. The truck, however, didn't seem to be slowing. I panicked as I realized that I wouldn't slow down enough to avoid the truck if it left its lane. So I hit the brake harder. Both on our brakes, the truck and I continued side by side toward the underpass, my exit directly on the other side. And then the truck started to skid. Rapidly spinning out, the truck veered into my lane. I tried to look up into the truck's cab to see if something had happened to the driver, but it was too close to get a good view through the truck's window. The squealing of brakes filled my ears as my hands gripped the steering wheel, holding on for dear life. Because there was no shoulder in the underpass, I realized that I would be pinned between the truck and the wall. I had heard of people who said that time seems to slow down during traumatic moments, with each detail of every movement clear to the eye. That wasn't the case here. 1 second I was watching the truck's cab approaching with feet still between us, and in the next second it was smashed against my door. The impact as the semi's cab hit my door was bone-shaking. The metal door puckered inward, rapidly reducing the breathable space inside my car. Jagged cracks raced across my windshield. I didn't even have enough time to scream because I was suddenly thrown to the right across the center console. My seatbelt had snapped. I closed my eyes and I felt shattered glass cut into my left cheek. Pain erupted everywhere, and then I was gone. Chapter 2. White. That was all I registered as my eyelids sluggishly opened. So much white. Where was I? I struggled to dredge up a memory of any kind and panicked when nothing readily came to mind. What happened to me? That's when it hit me. The accident. I remembered the screeching of tires, the white cab of the truck, shattering glass cutting into my face as other pains blossomed throughout my body. I was hit by a truck on the highway. So where exactly was I now? It was quiet here. The only sound was my panicked breathing. That realization that I was hearing myself breathe brought a slight relief. After all, if I was breathing, I couldn't be dead. Right? So what happened to me? If I wasn't dead, I should have been seriously hurt in that accident. My body felt heavy, probably from sedation or something like that. But I didn't feel any pain from injuries. I wanted to sit up, to see something other than the pure white scene in front of my eyes that offered no answers to my questions. Another realization. I was lying down. The whiteness above me was just a ceiling. My arms were heavy and almost entirely unresponsive as I tried to shift them into any sort of position that would allow me to sit up. I struggled for a while until my hands were positioned under my shoulders to lift myself upright. I pushed with all my available strength and gained a few inches of elevation. My head, heavy on my shoulders, lolled back slightly, but I was finally able to see more of what was around me. The room was small, only containing the bed in which I currently lay and a long, tan desk which sat opposite the door to my right. There was no chair visible around the desk, but there could have been a stool, something lower than the desk's height. I didn't see anything on the desk, and that confused me again. This was the cleanest room I had ever been in. No pictures on the walls, and the white sheets of my single bed were completely spotless. In fact, the Spartan cleanliness of this place would have reminded me of a hospital, if only there were medical equipment scattered around my small room. But there was nothing. Nothing to suggest that I would be in a hospital. No machines to monitor my heartbeat, no IVs, no apparatuses of any kind. Maybe I'd been healing and unconscious for so long that they weren't needed? I stared straight ahead at the white wall as panicked thoughts crept into my mind. Everything was so empty and pristine. Maybe I was dead, and this was how you're introduced to the afterlife. I worried about my family and friends. How would my death impact them? What would they do? Then the door, the same shade of tan as the desk. It opened. A tall, model-thin woman with ivory skin walked in with a pleasant smile on her face. Her movements were very smooth and even as if she was skating across the floor. She wore a knee-length, nondescript, light blue dress and wasn't carrying anything. Her hair, black and long, was straight with a white shock of hair framing the left side of her face. And her eyes, they were the most vivid shade of green I had ever seen. I couldn't help but stare as she stopped at the foot of my bed. "How are you feeling?" she asked in a clear and pleasant voice. It was the voice of someone who had repeated this dialogue many times before. Still taking in her looks, it took me a moment to register that she had asked a question. I feel fine, thank you." "Wonderful." Genuine cheerfulness oozed from that one word, but it only made me wary. She crossed the room and took a seat behind the desk. In a smooth, quick gesture, she passed her right hand over the surface of the desk, and the tan wood changed into what I could only describe as a computer screen. My mouth fell open. What was this place? The strange woman tapped away for a few moments, moving charts and text on the screen. Then her eyes snapped back up to mine. "Well, Aaliyah, it looks like you had quite the accident." Not a flicker of concern or sorrow crossed her face. It seemed like she was just saying what she had to, the way I would imagine a robot conversing. But something else caught my attention. She actually pronounced my name correctly. Anyone who ever read my name on a piece of paper would pronounce it Aaliyah, like this guy right here. And I'd have to correct them. It's Aaliyah. Teachers, interviewers, doctors, they'd all say it the same way, except for this woman. "How did you know how to pronounce my name?" The combination of nerves and a dry mouth had me choking out the question. Her eyes widened a tiny bit, perhaps taking in my nervous state, before her benign smile returned as she answered, "That's how it's listed in your chart." Oh, I wasn't really sure how to respond to that. This was all becoming too weird for me, and I needed to start getting answers. Where am I? Where is she? Find out by buying Remade. Thank you so much to our authors thus far. We are at the top of the show. How's everybody doing out there? Is everybody enjoying themselves? For the next 10 minutes, we are going to be doing promos for two very special people, and that's basically just going to be me talking. So let's take a quick minute to talk. I'll take a quick minute to look at your comments, and then we'll introduce the two people. These stories are fabulous. The poems are fabulous. The novels are fabulous. I really appreciate everybody. My voice is fine. Let me grab. Amy is saying he hopes my voice lasts in the comment section. That's great. Let me take a quick drink. We'll have a very, very brief social hour, and then we will introduce our next guest at 9 o'clock, and we're going to talk about my friends between then and now. So yeah, thank you everybody who is watching. If you are watching on Facebook, you are probably watching at Alec Pangia, my personal page. If you are watching at Alec Pangia, let me start over. You could also be watching at Alec Pangia-author, my author page on Facebook, or you could be watching at One True Promotion on Facebook, which Andrew and I share. Andrew is running the show behind the scenes tonight. Thank you so much, Andrew. You are the man. If you are watching on Instagram, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to cut the Instagram feed and bring it right back up for our reading of Sanguinary Song. Instagram rules, can't get around them. So don't go anywhere. If you're on Instagram, it'll go away and come right back. And I need to take a breath. I am loving the show. You guys have sent me, y'all have sent me, not everybody is a guy here. Y'all are sending me amazing stories. I agree with Andrew completely. This is an all-star lineup. You are all so talented. This is One True Promotion. This is all in association with One True Promotion. Everybody who's out here has been on Drop-A-Line or is going to be on Drop-A-Line. You are the Drop-A-Line interview community. You are the One True Promotion community of collaborators. You are in New Jersey. You are on the East Coast. You are in California. Some of you are overseas. This is simply amazing, and I love having you all here. So this is me trying to fill up 10 minutes. I am currently setting up a novel release of my own. And by the way, if you stay for the whole show tonight, I'm going to be doing a raffle at 11:40. No, 10:40, not 11:40, 10:40. The show ends at 11. 10:40, I'm doing a raffle. So if you watch the whole show, if you're out here for the whole show, the whole night, and you want to stick around for the raffle, that'd be totally awesome. I'll send you a free copy of Barker's Rules if you win. And the raffle is going to be something kind of like, tell me what you think Barker's Rules is about if you haven't read it yet. If you have read it, you can tell me what you think the third book, Phantom Wound, is going to be about. So that's what the raffle is going to be at 10:40. So maybe you can find Barker's Rules and buy it and do some speed reading before that happens. And if you give me the best answer, basically my favorite answer, the answer that I find to be the most, the most thoughtful or the funniest. I don't know how I'm going to pick yet, but y'all can let me know. But there's going to be a raffle. The chief qualification for the raffle is that you stay and you watch the whole show and give your attention to all these wonderful artists. Okay, so those of you who are watching on Instagram, I really hope you'll take a gander over to Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch for this next part, because I am currently writing a book called The Calipar, Book 1, The Children of Arc. I am releasing that on October 5th of 2021. And I have to say, I've gotten some amazing artwork for these books. I've gotten some amazing artwork. The artwork that I'm about to show you is done by, the artwork that you're about to see, rather, in this video coming up, is done by Michaela Simon. Michaela is an amazing artist. She has been working with me hand in hand to get me some of the best artwork for presentation of the first book, so people can be excited about it and kind of gain an atmosphere, an idea of what the book's atmosphere is going to be. Michaela has been a pleasure to work with. She is an extremely talented artist. She does all kinds of commissions. She'll do work for your book. She'll do embroidered masks, embroidered hats, and merchandise. There's just a whole bunch of stuff she does. It's really, truly amazing. And I want to give you a little, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch, we're going to give you a little sample of what Michaela has to offer right now. Take it away, Andrew. And that's a little promo for Michaela. Michaela is the best. She is giving me so much work, not just for Children of Arc, but for Barker's Rules as well. We're going to be doing that later this year. And I have to tell you, if you want to commission Michaela, follow Doodle all day, see what she's all about, and you can join in on the fun. Her rates are great. Her work is exemplary, and she is absolutely a joy to work with. You will not be disappointed. Michaela, thank you. Thank you for everything. I hope you're watching. I hope you enjoyed that little spot. And I hope that you'll join us again on Drop a Line. You are part of the Drop a Line community. So thank you, everybody. Next up, before our next reading, we have Cameron Coates. Cameron is the man. I was walking around. I was floating around social media. I came across Cameron's profile. I saw his artwork, and I've known Cameron since high school. We didn't talk much back then, but I remembered him, and I knew him, and I knew to reach out to him because he's always been a genuine guy. He's always been a nice guy. He's always been a professional and talented. You know, we've been in movies together, independent films. He's totally great. And his profile is absolutely lit. He's got so many amazing pieces. It's Cameron.s.k.coates. You'll see it on the screen in just a minute. Cameron has done some of my favorite artwork for Children of Arc. It is kind of reshaped how I see the story myself. It is he designed us a logo to use for the upcoming release, which may become the book cover. I've even started speaking to him about potentially doing a graphic novel series to accompany the books because I just like working with him that much, and he just gets it. The whole vision that he brings to his artwork is exactly the kind of sort of grit and close-up intensity that really follows the work that I write. So Cameron, like Michaela, whose work is amazing, has just been an integral part of this process, and I'm just absolutely blessed to have both of them. I would like to give you a quick taste of what Cameron has to offer to you if you would like to commission him as well. Fire away, Andrew. And that's Cameron. Cameron, I love all of that work. You will notice that a lot of those drawings are of supernatural creatures. Only one of those was for Calipar, just the one. I'm not going to tell you which one, but one of those was for Calipar. And the rest are actually from one of his stories. He hasn't announced it yet, so I'm not going to say anything about it. But it's from a story that he has written and he has drawn the characters for. It's all over his profile, which was listed in the video. You should really go and check out Cameron, and you should definitely get to know the guy a little bit. Comment on his stuff, you know, start building a community for him. Get to know him because he might be rolling out a story that you won't soon forget. So if you are interested in supporting two of the best artists that I know, please follow Doodle All Day or Simon Sayings and Cameron.s.k.coates on Instagram. They were on the screen. Both of them are just, you know, big parts of the team, and I really would love it if you would see what they're all about, see what they have to offer, comment on their stuff, share their stuff. I mean, if you want to commission either of these people, you know, you want to get into talks with them because you like what you see, just like I did, I tell you, you won't be disappointed. They're both great to work with, and I look forward to them being a part of this brand for as long as this series lasts. I really think that that is a high possibility. I'm really looking forward to this novel release, and I'm looking forward to see what they come out with. So please support their small business enterprises. They are the best. Thank you both. All right, we are getting close to 9 o'clock, and we just started a new video on Instagram, so that is good. We are good to go. Our behind-the-scenes guy at One True Promotion, the co-founder, Andrew Bass, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give him a hand. The Sanguinary Song, ladies and gentlemen, by my best friend, And partner at One True Promotion, Andrew Bast. Half the magic here at One True Promotion. Prologue. The branches were knocking at Christina's window. She had told her father that they needed to be cut down, but he must not have gotten around to it. Another bolt of lightning lit up the sky. She turned over on her side. If she didn't focus on it, she would forget about it. She closed her eyes to escape the next flash of light. At first it worked, but then a loud, inescapable bang made her jump. Rolling her eyes, she hugged the pillow to her ear to no avail. The next clash of thunder forced her out of bed. Christina rubbed her eyes and unlocked her phone. There was one message from her friend Daniela. "Hey girl, just in case I haven't said it enough, happy birthday!" Smiley face. Christina smiled and quickly wrote back, "When are you going to be back in town?" Her phone pinged again. "We are on our way. Dad says we should be there by morning and that we are just going to drive through tonight. He says I should sleep so I'm not tired when we get there. Can't wait to see you. It's been so long." Christina closed her text and opened her notes application. She wrote, October 24th, 2042, 11:35 p.m. In 10 minutes, I'll be 13. Daniela and her parents will be here in the morning. I'm excited to spend the whole day with them. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. I wish Daniela's family didn't have to move around so much. I've really missed her. Christina paused, looking towards the window. Natalie, Daniela's mom, was Christina's godmother. Both of their mothers had always been close, which led both of their daughters to be close friends as well. Even though her mother was an only child, Christina was raised to call them Aunt Natalie and Uncle Liam, out of respect. The McNallys were practically a second family to her, even if she only got to see them every so often. Christina breathed deeply, closed her notes, and looked out the window. The branches bounced off the glass as the wind bent the branches into submission. She reached over to her lamp on her dresser. She twisted the light switch carefully, but to her dismay, nothing happened. She rolled out of bed and touched her feet to the hardwood floor, the cold wood chilling her right through her socks. Christina then shuffled over to the light switch on her wall, flipping it on. Again, nothing. "Great," she said. Christina took a deep breath and opened her bedroom door. "Mom, Dad, the power's out. Anyone going out back to get the generator?" Christina peered down the dark hallway. Her eyes instinctively looked up towards the skylight that hung above the stairs. Lightning illuminated the hallway. Her parents' door was open, which was unlike them. No response. Christina rolled her eyes and opened her flashlight app on her phone to reveal the path before her. Maybe her parents had fallen asleep on the couch again. They had been working late and would often settle down to watch a movie, only to have the movie watch them. Just to be sure, she tiptoed over to her parents' bedroom and peeked inside. The light shined on a bed made with the greatest of precision. Her parents were in the military, after all, and nobody made a bed like they did. Christina then made her way downstairs. As she made her descent, she could hear the boards moan and creak as she brought her weight down upon them. When she realized her parents might be sleeping downstairs, she slowed her pace to quell the noise. When she reached the living room, what she found was a chilling breeze and an open window. Flapping in the ongoing storm, she tensed and shuddered. She picked up the pace now, attempting to close the window before the next breeze came through. Just as she reached the window, a heavy wind slammed the house. The window shade came off its tracks and wrapped around her. A moment later, the wind steadied and then subsided. Christina grunted under the shade, throwing it to the ground. At the top of the pole where the shade was supposed to mount, the plastic bent, preventing her from fixing it. Christina closed the window and ran her fingers through her crimson hair, carefully crafting it into a ponytail with the hair tie on her wrist. She could feel the goosebumps forming on her shoulders, and rubbed them until the warmth came back to her. It was at that moment that she felt that the floor was damp. She wasn't paying attention to the rain that had blown in from the storm, soaking her socks as she went to shut it. Taking them off and throwing them into the corner, Christina got back to the task at hand. She shined a light over the living room. Both the sofa and the couch were empty. Where were her parents this late at night? She used the light to illuminate the puddle on the floor underneath her. She knew her mom would never forgive her if she left the mess. Christina turned towards the kitchen. Another cold breeze swept over her as if a car had just rushed past her. She felt her hand loosen on her phone, and when she looked down, it was gone completely, along with the light that guided her through the house. Christina looked all around her in trepidation. If the phone were undamaged, its light would be on. She knelt down in the dark, frantically patting her hands on the cold wooden floor. Where is it? Christina thought, anxiety rising. She had so many things on that phone, more than she was willing to lose. Christina patted the floor all over the kitchen, finding nothing. Had it rolled all the way over to the living room sofa? Incredulous at the thought, she fixed her eyes on the living room. That was when her eyes locked on a dark figure. Dad? She called out, more startled than she should have been. That open window was getting to her. Dad, come on. If it's you, it's not funny. Where's Mom? Christina waited for a response, and still nothing had come. Why was he doing this? Mom would kill him if he let the floor get wet like that. Christina looked back at the figure, narrowing her eyes. She crept closer, trying to find her dad's face. Instead, she found a pair of glowing red eyes cutting through the darkness and settling upon her. Christina stopped, her heart racing. She felt a knot in her throat. Fighting to get out the words, Christina spoke. Who are you? She squeaked, her bravery deteriorating. Run, she told herself. Just turn around and run. She wanted to flee, but her feet felt nailed to the floor. Suddenly, the lightning flashed through the room, allowing her for a moment to see the blood-soaked smile of the figure sitting before her. As the darkness returned, all she could think about were the veins that bulged down around his piercing red eyes. Christina felt herself lose balance, her mind in one place and her body attempting to make a break for the kitchen door. She couldn't keep her eyes off the figure as she hit the ground. She used her hands to propel herself backward, breaking free from the living room into the kitchen. The figure did not move. His eyes followed her, as if he was stalking his prey. Suddenly, she felt a warm and wet feeling on her hands. Christina tried to backpedal, but slipped on the drenched floor and rolled onto her belly. She heard a chuckle coming from behind her. She spun around and noticed that the figure's eyes had faded back into the darkness. If he was still there watching her, she was too far away to make out where he was, now lurking. Another gust of wind dashed beside her. With metal clang of an object fell onto the floor beside her. On her hands and knees once more, Christina reached around until she found a lighter. She fumbled around with it, trying to get a firm grasp on the igniter. It had been forever since her dad showed her how. Christina carefully felt around for the flint wheel and rolled her thumb downwards, igniting a small spark. The darkness quickly consumed it. She tried again. This time a small spark rang out of the lighter. Come on, work! Christina's hand was trembling, almost dropping the lighter in front of her. She grabbed her wrist with her left hand and willed her shaking to stop. Her heart was pounding, her eyes searching around the room. Christina moved her thumb as fast as she could, hoping that the faster she rolled the wheel, the faster it would ignite. She had almost given up hope until the flame sprung out of the lighter, its amber glow shimmering off her face. She looked down at her hand and realized that they were not covered with water. They were covered with blood. She wanted to scream, but no sound came to her lips. Christina felt her eyes beginning to water. She fought back the tears as long as she could before she forced herself to look. Slowly, Christina lowered the lighter. She kept her gaze away from the light as long as she could. She had to know what had happened to her family. There at her feet were her mother and father. They were piled on top of one another. Both were staring, eyes open, and mouths gaping at the ceiling. They were motionless, either fear or pain frozen on their faces. She couldn't tell how they died. What she could see, however, were the letters DD carved into their foreheads, and the initials surrounded by an inverted triangle. Christina dropped the lighter. The puddle of blood extinguished its flame. In pitch blackness once more, Christina shuffled backwards until she felt herself back up to the kitchen cabinet. If she was going to die, it was going to be with a fight. Sanguinary song, Andrew Bass, the one and only, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, we have author Nancy Ann. This is from the Shadow Realm Chronicles, everybody. Chapter 1, Matthew's Return. A large mansion sat on the outskirts of town. Most people never went there. The residents of River's Peak were at the funeral for Hunter Marks. No one was near the mansion to see this event. Fire spewed from the fireplace in the mansion as a shadow stepped out of the flames. The shadow formed into a man who resembled Matthew, the son of Alexander Marks. He looked over himself in the mirror, admiring what he saw. His skin was red, and he wore raggedy clothes with burnt edges. He had horns protruding from the top of his head. With a flick of his wrist, the man's clothes changed to a black tailored suit with a maroon tie. He admired his face, but he knew he had to blend in. Well, this won't work here. He snapped his fingers, and his horns disappeared as his red skin faded back to his pale skin. He smirked. Much better. His large muscles shrank. "Hello, weak body. We meet again." He laughed. "I will make them pay for what they did. I will find you, Morel and Sean, and we will rule all the realms together." He formed a dome over the town by waving his hand as Maeve had done before. They won't know a thing. Unbeknownst to Matthew, Morel's magic was still affecting the town. She tried her best to hide her children from her father. Morel's spell was the reason no one remembered Gwen and Tommy. It was the reason they could stay safe for so long. Matthew was not aware of Morel's spell, so as soon as his own dome went up, he forgot Morel. Everyone forgot her. Her face, her name, her voice, her love, lost to him, lost to everyone. He looked in the mirror once again. His eyes, once filled with love, were not dark and gray. He had lost the love of his life. She was dead, he thought. His anger grew because he blamed his parents for her death. "They abandoned you and Sean, and I will make them pay." He knew he had a wife. He knew he had a son. But he couldn't remember Morel's face or her name. His blind hatred of the town was overtaking him. "Why can't I see her? You will pay for what you did to my wife. I will kill you and leave you to rot in the shadow realm." He fell to the floor crying and vowing revenge. Chapter 2. The Snowy Town. The snow fell heavier than earlier. It didn't bother him, but he knew others would think it strange if he did not wear a coat. He waved his hand and his clothes transformed into long corduroy pants and a sweater. He knew these clothes were not enough, so he waved his hand again and a long black coat appeared. He pulled the collar up and put his hands in his pockets while he walked. This is better. No one will suspect. He walked past several stores, but there was no one anywhere. Where is everyone? He came to the church. He read the sign. Memorial service for Hunter Marks at 6 p.m. Tuesday night at the Rivers Run Memorial Cemetery. Matthew laughed. "You worthless piece of shit." He had hated Hunter for years, ever since he was a child. "I could have never left Sean the way you left your family. What a worthless piece of shit you were. I would have liked to kill you myself, but this is the next best thing." Matthew walked through the town as snow fell. "How will my parents react when they see me?" He laughed out loud. "What will they say when they see my true form? I have to be cautious. They need to trust me. They need to believe me." His thoughts went back to her. He could not see her, but he could still sense her. "I will find you. I will know you when I see you. But now I must focus on Sean. I must get back to him." Chapter 3. Hunter's Funeral. They covered the gravesite in flowers, which surprised Matthew. Maeve always loved flowers. Even as a vampire, she loved to look at them, though she could not smell them. Through the last year Maeve and Hunter spent together, the rest of the family heard stories of their love. They learned that Hunter used to bring gardenias to Maeve when they dated. They were her favorites. She liked roses and violets, but gardenias were her favorites. The pulpit was at the front of a few rows of white chairs, divided by an aisle down the middle. Hunter's coffin was in the front of the pulpit, ready to be lowered into his grave. Little did any of the mourners know that the coffin was in fact empty. In the front row sat Hunter's family. His son Alexander and his daughter-in-law, Celeste. There was an open seat next to Hunter. Matthew wondered who that seat was for. Matthew stayed in the back, hiding from the mourners. Why were there so many mourners? Why were so many crying over this Fool. As warm rays of the setting sun overcame the mourners, several candles were lit, illuminating the aisle. Matthew watched as a rushing mist came up the aisle and stopped to rest at the edge of the tree line. Now what are you supposed to be? The mist transformed into Maeve as the last remnants of the sun's rays faded away. Matthew gasped, "Maeve, what the hell are you doing here?" He watched her from where he stood. She hates Hunter. Why is she here? Maeve walked up to the lighted aisle and took her seat next to her son, Alexander. She looked at him and took his hand. "This is amazing. It's perfect. I know he's over us." Alexander pulled his mother into a hug. "I know he's watching over us." Celeste looked back and saw Sean sitting with Carolyn and Luke. Sean is the adopted son of Carolyn and Luke, but the biological grandson of Celeste and Alexander. She waved to them. "I love getting to know him. Too much waste of time. I have to get used to calling him Justin." Matthew watched the service, but his attention was on Sean. He could have sworn that they called him Justin. He couldn't take his eyes off him. "My son, soon you and I will rule the realms and you will help me find your mother. The three of us will rule all," Matthew whispered to himself. He smiled, imagining this world. Alexander needed Maeve's help with the ceremony. Maeve would be the one to share, not Alex. He knew little of Hunter. He knew little of the loving and kind Hunter that Maeve knew. Growing up, Alex didn't have many fond memories of Hunter. His father was always sad and angry or drinking. "I always wish I knew the Hunter that Maeve knew. Whenever I find him, fate finds a way to take him." Alex tried to keep his composure. A small tear fell from his eyes as his lips quivered. Celeste noticed, then reached over to take her husband's hand and squeezed it. The pastor stepped to the pulpit. It is said when one of his church members was dying, John Watson, the Scottish preacher of Edinburgh, knelt and whispered into the person's ear, "In my Father's house are many rooms." Then, with a contented sigh, the person slipped away. If we could see the glory of Hunter's homecoming, no one would call him back to the limit of his aged body. We will miss Hunter, but here's something peaceful in his departure. The glory of God shines brighter than the sun in his radiance, and his face is now glistening in that glorious light. The earthly journey has ended and a heavenly one has begun. This didn't comfort Maeve. Maeve knew Hunter was not at peace, and she would find him. Jonathan was holding him back. She repeated her wedding vows over to herself. "So long as we both shall live." She looked up, trying to hold back her tears. "Longer, Hunter. I will live longer." She didn't want others to know. "Let them believe he is at peace, and then I will find him and give him his peace." The pastor called them up to lay a rose on the coffin. Alexander walked up and tossed his flower on the coffin. "I wish I had had time to know you better, the real you. I wish it had been longer." The last year of Hunter's life he spent with Maeve and Alexander was finally able to see the better side of Hunter. Justin walked up with his flower in hand. He had so many questions, and he didn't know who to ask. He placed the flower on the grave and left with many questions yet to ask. The rest of the mourners walked up to the grave, giving their blessings. Most said nothing, as they passed and placed a flower on his grave. As the mourners took their seats, Maeve approached the pulpit to address the thoughts of the town. "I know I frightened many of you, and you have a great hatred for Hunter. You have nothing to fear from me. Hunter might have made mistakes in his life, but he paid for them. He was a good man." With that, she walked over to Hunter's grave. "I will find you, and I will set you free, just as you set me free." That was the Shadow Realm Chronicles by Nancy Ann. Thank you so much, Nancy. Next up, we have Sarah Francis. The Isles by Sarah Francis. Chapter 1. Allison 1. I don't think life was like this before the accident. I remember hearing stories about the world becoming somewhat like this one, but I never thought it would really happen. Oh, sorry, I should probably back it up a little. As of this morning, the headmaster of the Isles has ordered all of us to keep a record log about ourselves, our pasts, how we're feeling, what we ate for breakfast, and weird things like that. So basically, we're supposed to keep a diary, a very descriptive one. He said that these will be the only personal items we're allowed to keep other than our toothbrushes and clothing. Huh, there's really no point to this. They'll just take my diary away too, sooner or later. Anyways, hello, I'm Allison from the Isle of Biomechatronics Testing, and this is my record log. I am 18 years old, and I was the first successful test subject of the science of biomechatronic implantation. 8 years ago, a terrorist group we call the Invaders raided my hometown. That tragic day is forever burned into my memory. They set houses on fire, stole goods, blew up whole blocks, and murdered almost everyone they saw. I was lucky enough to survive, but not without consequences. I lost my entire family that day. We were running for our lives, down a narrow street. The buildings were ablaze, bleeding bodies lay everywhere, and the beautiful autumn sky was hidden by thick, black smoke. Screams and gunshots were the only things to reach our ringing ears. My father led us through the destruction. He was as frightened as everyone else, but he kept his wits about him for our sake. He confidently gripped his pistol and fended off anyone who came near. Unfortunately, we weren't even halfway out of the city when he ran out of bullets. He resorted to his knife. When they attacked, he slashed and knocked them down. With no time to finish them off, he left them lying in the burning streets, covered in cuts and cursing him. Following close behind, my mother carried my youngest sibling in her arms. I can't remember if it was a boy or a girl. I pulled the twins along and did my best to comfort them. Trudging through the ashes, we were on our way to an old farm, a safe house, but our enemy beat us to it. Just when we thought we were in the clear, a bomb exploded in our refuge. Any object within a 20-yard radius was scorched with fire. We were on the outskirts of the blast, but if only we had been delayed for a few more seconds. In that moment, time seemed to slow down. I watched as my father ran towards my mother and shielded her and my siblings, wrapping his arms around them. He prepared to take the heat of the fire. I fell behind and desperately tried to catch up to them. My eyes met theirs for the last time. I saw the fear and desperation in their faces as they shouted at me to stay put. I ignored their pleas and kept going. Suddenly, the blast consumed my loved ones and blew me across the field. Pain, like I had never felt before, surged through my body, and I passed out. When I woke up, I was covered in a teal gown, lying on a strange table. The light was dim. One lonely lamp hung above me. People in masks were leaning over me and doing something to my body. The tools they were using were not those of a doctor. Their instruments whirred and beeped as they operated. Regaining my senses a bit, I began to feel the pain. Severe agony was shooting up and down the right side of me, where I was injured the most. I glanced over and was so horrified at what I saw that I began to scream. From my shoulder to my feet, charred skin was sloughing off my body, and blood was trickling through cracks in the black crust from my neck on down. Worst of all, my right arm and half my right leg were gone. The doctors, quote-unquote doctors, immediately injected me with an anesthetic that caused me to lose feeling and consciousness in less than a second. The second time, I woke in a comfortable bed, wearing the softest white t-shirt and bottoms I'd ever felt. Looking around, however, I wondered if I were in a prison cell. Each wall was a uniform dull shade of gray, and one naked light bulb dangled from the ceiling. Across from the bed was a large metallic sliding door with not a window in sight. At the foot of the bed was a small, lonely bookshelf that longed to be filled. A room about the size of a broom closet was located next to the bookshelf. It held only a sink and toilet. Finding strength, I sat up and began to stretch. As I moved, something felt a little different than normal. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a faint gleam. I looked down on my right side and saw metal. The arm I'd lost had been resurrected as a machine. Tossing off the covers, I took another look at myself. I lifted up my shirt and pulled down my pants to see that the entire right side of my torso and right leg had suffered the same fate. It felt like my heart stopped. I sat there dumbfounded, not knowing whether to scream or cry. Finally, I came to my senses and struggled out of bed. My body reacted exactly the same way it did before the accident, as if nothing were wrong. The metal parts of me still felt like me, and they obviously had something like nerve endings, because they weren't numb or anything. I could feel the soft cloth on my mechanical parts as well as on the original me. I walked into the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and was, well, shocked isn't a strong enough word for it. My skin was pale, and there were staples running all the way across my forehead, where an incision had been closed. My hair was no longer long and chocolate-colored. It had been chopped off, even with my ears, and had turned as white as an old woman's. The brown eyes that matched my mother's had become a depressing shade of gray, and 4 thin, dark lines formed crosshairs in both my irises, with my pupils at their center. Not only that, but there was a faint line that looked like a chain extending from my pupils to the right corner of each iris. Not wanting to believe what I was seeing, I stood there staring and pondering for a good long while. I wanted to cry, but no tears would fall. What is this? I wondered, distressed. Could I even cry anymore? My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the metal doors bursting open, revealing a man standing on the other side. He was tall and lanky, with a full head of unkempt red hair. He had light skin and a crooked nose and wore a green-collared shirt tucked into black dress pants. "Ah, you're awake now," he greeted, smiling. His English had an accent different than my own, but it sounded kind. Holding out his hand and looking at me with warm blue eyes, he said, "I know you're scared, but don't be afraid. Things are changing for the better." He led me out of the room, down a corridor lined with doors exactly like mine on both sides. At the end of the hall was an elevator. The man bent and stared at the panel next to it. When it finished scanning his retinas, there was a faint ding of a bell and the elevator doors opened. Once inside, he pushed a small silver button with the letter L on it. "What does the L stand for?" I asked him, speaking aloud for the first time. My voice sounded normal, thankfully. Looking at me with a smile, he replied, "Lobby." "Haven't you ever been in an elevator before?" "I don't know," I said automatically. Then I thought about it. Maybe, but I wasn't expecting a lobby in a building like this. He nodded. "I can see that you're confused. Don't worry. You'll get used to things." After a moment of silence, he slapped his palm against his forehead and apologized. "Oh, where are my manners? My name is Cameron Alloway, but you must refer to me as Mr. Alloway. You see, formalities are very important here. When you meet anyone, you must refer to them as Mr. or Mrs. unless told otherwise. There's more to go over, but they'll explain. They'll explain it to you later, Allison." I almost started to panic. I was about to ask him how he knew my name when there was another ding and the doors slid open. And that is The Isles by Sarah Francis. I am loving, loving, loving tonight's books. Excuse me, real quick, 30 seconds. Sorry to cut Sarah about 40 seconds short. Just don't want to lose my voice for y'all. It was super engaging, wasn't it? I'm going to have to hold my comments till after, but I love these stories and I have a million things to say about them. Anyways, we are moving right along. We are right on the 9:30 mark, and we are going to introduce our next author. And I know that he is watching. I hope he's watching on Facebook too. Matthew Romeo. This is The Maven Knight, Matthew Romeo's first book of the series. Part 1, Strangers in the Desert. Chapter 1, Serena, Blind Rage. Red is all I see as I'm dragged away from the sound of carnage. Like blood spattered all over a blank canvas, it blocks out my sight. I'm in a feral state of panic. I don't know what's happened. I just hear sounds of violence, the smell of smoke, and feel gloved hands dragging me away. What is this? My mind wanders in a state of primal fear. Thoughts are scattered like embers blown from a fire and into the wind. Stomach is churning, blood is pumping, heart is fluttering. Anger is rising. The crimson paint fades slightly from the canvas. There's still a red haze over my field of vision, a mist of hate. I see swarms of people fighting with fists, swords, and rifles. The hall is a ruin and fire shine in my eyes like light piercing through water. I'm in the grand hall of a cathedral-like embassy building. The refined metal supports and beams crisscross high in the rafters and before the ceiling arches above. Dark, glossy pieces of ore form like shingles within the vaulted roof. Chandeliers imbued with holographic lights dangle from chains. Within its 50-meter diameter, along with burnished cream tiles, are elongated tables laden with spilled food and drink. I think I made those drinks. Everything is clouded in a crimson mist, like everything is bloody or on fire, and it stirs the uncontrollable anger within me. I've never been one to act out of hatred, but I feel like an enraged beast. As the moments pass, more of my anger builds into frustration. Uncontrollable and hungry for blood, I try to free myself from the clutches of those dragging me, but I can no longer move. My body is numb, and I panic again in confused trepidation. What in all the hells is going on? My mind struggles to think back. I remember that my name is Serena. I remember my job as a brewer from the Blue Den Bar. I can remember that I had been invited to an embassy gala to serve ale for the ambassadors, and I remember one reason why there's chaos present in this embassy. There's been an ongoing struggle between the commoners and the royals in the capital of Zart City. My homeland has been plagued with a trade war, leaving thousands to starve. Oran, the nation of the north, raised their taxes on crops, while Zart raised its value of ore. So I understand some of the reasons behind the violence, but I cannot remember how this chaos erupted. My mind starts spinning. I blank on details, and I can't even remember why I'm being dragged away. Why is my vision misty with red? It feels unnatural. Through the haze, I can vaguely see silver armored imperial guards fire blasts of energy to stun many. Commoners have rushed into the cathedral and are clawing, beating, and stabbing at many of the nobles. I cannot focus on anyone's face, for they're all silhouetted in red. They are like fiery demons from the pits of hells. A table is overturned and commoners scramble to scavenge spilled food. Like barbarians, they cram food into their mouth ravenously. Some even attack those attempting to obtain food like a wolf fending off scavenging foxes. It's barbaric. A frenzy of which my own rage feeds upon. But as I'm dragged from the cathedral and outside into a courtyard, my rage subsides. My body feels cooler, like a fever is wearing off. Soon the red begins to turn darker, like shadows obscuring the light. The night air is refreshing, but my eyes start to roll back. I can hear the faint whine of a repulsor engine. As I'm dragged through a courtyard, I see more chaos through a hazy field of vision. 4 figures stand out in the darkness. A stocky man with black hair, a dark-skinned woman, and 2 individuals wearing full armor. The man is on all fours before the armored people, and he's in pain. I feel a surge of pity for him. My attention fades. Muffled voices say, "We have her. Get the ship ready and round up some of the others for transport. More orders await at the pit." My mind barely comprehends this. Manacles are locked over my hands as the guards carry me. Darkness clouds my vision the way a storm blocks out the sun. The blinding red of rage has passed, but the cold fingers of fear clutch at my heart. Unconsciousness takes me. Chapter 2, Talir, Honest Living. "I hope you plan on staking a claim on those fuel cylinders, Talir." Alvin calls my name from across the service shaft. "They'll pay for a week's worth of rations." I hold up the small metal cylinder and unscrew the lid to get a look at its contents. The muddy sight and pungent smell tell me it's definitely old fuel. Whether or not it is worth anything that I have to find out the hard way. Taking 3 cylinders and storing them in my satchel, I gingerly walk along the service shaft within the hull of the ship. A canopy of frayed wires and pipes obscures most of the way, and the air smells like stale lubricants. Sunlight peeks through openings in the hull, and I can hear the innate breeze outside. A few meters ahead of me is Alvin, my friend for many years. His frizzy blonde hair is pulled back into a bun, and he sports a raggedy shirt and pants. It is around midday as I fiddle with a degraded transport sticking out of the desert sand. The old civilizations are certainly generous when it comes to leaving their old toys behind. The one I am currently salvaging seems to be a trading vehicle. It is one of many in this part of Pyrrhec Desert, but they are also sparse enough to be rare salvage jobs. The big job for the week is to find working parts, fuel, or sheets of bronze, and I intend to find something valuable to pay for some food. Old fuel cells are relatively valuable, but I don't have high hopes for making a fortune. It is a tough life, salvaging scrap in the Pyrrhec, but it is an honest life. Work hard, and you get to eat. That was the long and short of it. What have you gotten a hold of? I call, my voice echoing in the empty service shaft. Hopefully something better than that Polar sensor last week. Hey, to be fair, it wasn't broken until John got his hands on it, Alvin admits shrewdly, and I think he'll go for some repulsor energy chambers this time. Aren't those radioactive? I ask with alarm. Only if opened. He chuckles nervously. Typical Alvin. Always reading the line between risky and being stupid. Riding the line, sorry. I can't help but smile at his confidence, though. He knows when to gamble, when to take risks, and when to strive for more than his comfort zone. I'm never really one to take huge risks in my life, and the life I live is a testament to this. But oddly enough, I am content with the grubby work and shabby living conditions. Certainly not happy, but content. So how about we split the profits on the servo actuator? I ask for a moment. You'll need some help disassembling it. What's to stop me from taking all the credit? Alvin snorts, looking back at me. I shrug. The bond of friendship? That's not really doing it for me, Talia. He snorts a laugh. How about you buy me a drink at Slugs? I give him a slight nod. Let's go to work. The orange sun is setting over the dunes when we finish disassembling the servo actuator. The temperature is dropping and the wind is kicking up flurries of sand. Clambering down from the transport, Alvin and I start our trek back to the village. It takes almost an hour, but we make it back just in time to catch John closing the shop for the night, a glorified garage of sorts. John's parlor is the main hub for work and trade in this part of Pyrrhec. Large enough to hold a transport. The stone floor is covered in sand, oil puddles, and spare parts. Change and cargo racks drape from the dimly lit ceiling, and tables and shelves line the perimeter. The garage owner is locking up his valuable parts into a container when we enter the garage. 5 minutes till I close for salvage claims, John grumbles with his back to us. Make it quick, boys. I go up to him first as he stands and turns toward me. His dark hair has smears of grime while his tan face seems sunburned. He stands to his full height, which barely surpasses me, as he arches a bushy eyebrow. Here are some old fuel cylinders from the transport at Site 4, I say, placing the 3 cylinders on a nearby table. The sludge in these things is barely worth an hour's pay, Tillier, John says, examining the contents. All it's really good for is fire fuel. So for 3, I'll give you 5 O-rings. Just 5, I ask, with a tinge of disappointment. I thought they'd be worth at least 10. John gives me a shrug. Normally they'd only be worth 3, but since you're a good kid, Tillier, I'm giving you a bit extra. That is The Maven Knight by Matthew Romeo. If you liked what you heard, go buy the book. It's part of a series. I need a drink. Whew. All right, we got some time. We got some time, so just give me a minute to drink. My next reader, give me a quick minute to capture my voice, and we will start you just about a couple seconds ahead of schedule, and we will go a little bit over. Oh man, I'm running out of water. This has just become, I believe, the longest live reading we have ever done, and I have to say I am immensely enjoying it. I love having this many of you together at once. Thank you for your encouragement in the comments section. For those of you who are still watching, I am really, really, really loving this. And I like that a lot of you are still here watching the whole thing because you guys are entering a raffle by doing so. All right. And I just want to remind everybody on Instagram, I see that Nicholas Georgel just joined us and he is going to be coming up soon. Make sure you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch as well because you can see the full effect of the show. Alrighty, friends. Next up, we have Aimee Atakpa, who is a future guest on Drop a Line. I am very excited to read his work. Take it away, Andrew. This is from The Stars Within Us by Aimee Atakpa. 1. Usually in the movies, it rained in moments like this. You'd get that overhead view of dozens of black umbrellas held by just as many people in black suits and dresses. Some of the women wearing those veils that tell you they're in mourning. But it wasn't like that all for me. That at all for me. The sun was out, the grass was dry, and not everyone was dressed in black. It made sense. Life wasn't a movie, even if it sometimes felt like it was. You look like a magazine girl, Mark had told me in 3rd grade. For some reason, that's all I could think about. It felt like that's all I'd be able to be going forward. After all, there'd be no one left to tell me otherwise. 3rd grade was when everything started, all with that one simple observation from Mark. A week later, he showed me one of his dad's magazines. Pictures of beautiful women filled its pages. Most of them modeling swimsuits or underwear, their bodies on full display. The women's faces were milky smooth, so free of imperfections that it baffled me that anyone would compare me to one of them. See, he said, as though he was drawing some intricate conclusion. Magazine girls. The sound of his voice never faded from memory, even as his face slowly did. All those years later, I even remembered his name, Mark, like he'd been delivered into my life to mark what I would be from here on out. He wasn't entirely wrong either. My body was starting to blossom, well, before most of my peers, and boys were paying attention. Most boys didn't start really liking girls, but they did start liking me. The first time I noticed was when I watched one of them kiss a girl on the cheek and wish it had been my cheek instead. But that was before I heard his friends congratulate him and go on about how jealous they were. They placed bets on kissing the prettiest girls. After hearing that, I prayed it would never be me. When Mom picked me up from school that day, I asked her why boys kiss girls on the ride home. Boys kiss girls they like, she explained. Do you like someone? I shook my head. If you do, you can tell me. I knew I could. Mom helped me through everything. I'd be completely lost without her. I should have told her that, but I'd seen other kids get made fun of for loving their parents, so I kept quiet. Looking back, maybe I kept quiet too much. I didn't want to get called Mama's girl and be made fun of. Making friends was hard enough as it was. Even so, Mom had always been the best person to go to for advice. In 4th grade, I managed to make 2 good friends, Trista and Evan, short for Evangeline. We sat together in all our classes, always walked together in the halls, and had the absolute best time together during recess. It helped that they were both smart like me. We didn't mind working diligently on our work during class to free up time to freely chat later. Trista and Evan loved to talk about boys. Which ones were smart, which ones were funny, which ones were cute. When boys smiled at us, Trista and Evan smiled back. On the occasions we talked to them, they teased the boys and the boys teased back. Well, mostly the boys just teased me. Like the time Brian snuck over to our table while we were watching a movie in social studies. Hey, Andy, he whispered. Hey, Andy, he whispered. You've got some fuzz on your leg. The lights were out, so there was no way he could have seen fuzz on my leg, but I glanced down anyway. There's not. His face moved close to mine, obscurely lit by the light from the TV. Okay, I lied, but there's definitely something on your cheek. Looks like honey. His lips turned from a restrained, closed-mouthed grin into a toothy one. Want me to get it off for you? I looked around Brian to the table he'd snuck off from. 3 other boys quickly turned away from me. Figured. I pulled away. If you get it off, my cheeks won't be sweet anymore. True, Brian said, and smiled awkwardly. Reading boys came easily. The twitch in his smile, the spiteful undertone in his voice, those things told me how disappointed he was that he couldn't taste the honey on my cheeks. What was that about? Evan asked me after the movie. What about? Don't play dumb. That thing with Brian. What'd he say to you? Trissa huddled around me too, desperate for some saucy news. Nothing, I told them. The boys were still looking in our direction. Pardon me. The boys were still looking in our direction, Brian concluded. He blew a kiss and the others laughed. But when Evan reached out to catch it, Brian roped it back and wagged his finger. Things happen like that with a lot of boys. I tried not to be cold, and most of the time I did talk to them. In fact, I talked to Jimmy for a long time after I met him on the playground one day. He had this great curly hair that Trista could never stop talking about. Since I didn't have any interest in him, I tried to do what any good friend would do. Do you think Trista is pretty? I asked him one day. He looked over my shoulder at Trista and Evan huddled together in a corner of the playground, picking at pieces of the rubber blacktop. Which one is Trista? Long. Brown hair? Oh yeah, he said absently, his eyes trailing back to me. She's cute. I think you're cuter. He didn't blush or pull in my shoulders or give him any other sign that I was interested. I think Trista likes you. Do you like me? Jimmy really didn't care if I liked him. The truth was written in his eyes, which were focused exclusively on my lips. I clenched my teeth. Trista likes you, I insisted. That only made his face go sour, because why have Trista when he could have me? Everyone seemed to want me, and Trista saw the way Jimmy leaned in closer to me and smiled. Even though I turned down his advance and returned to my friends without a kiss on my lips, Trista looked at me like I'd just stolen her most prized possession. It was a look of betrayal. We didn't talk much about Jimmy after that. Trista and Evangeline talked to me less and less the more attention I got from boys. They were sick of never being anyone's first pick. Magazine girl. I didn't even want the attention. I didn't think the boys thought that way. I didn't think of boys the way they thought of me. No one seemed to understand that, except for Mom, that is. She was pretty perceptive. After a few weeks of my friendship with the girls falling apart, Mom noticed that I'd stopped talking about them. Is everything okay with your friends? She'd ask me at the end of dinner one night. What friends? I mumbled. Dad cleared his throat and began clearing his plates from the table. It's something he always did when conversations started to get heavy or get too personal. It was easier for him to delegate those things to Mom. You have friends, she said plainly. Not anymore. They don't want to be my friend. I think they're missing out then. Sure enough, they were missing out on the attention they wanted, but I was missing out on my best friends. I lost so much more than they'd been missing. You're a smart and sweet girl, Mom told me. You'll make more friends. You'll lose some too, but you will always find more. It was hard to believe while the wounds were still fresh, but she was right. Loneliness had taken its toll on me. I no longer had anyone to talk to, besides the typical interaction with boys, the not-so-discreet longing for hugs and kisses, the way they showered me with compliments thinking they could win my affection with flattery when all I really wanted was to be cared about. It was fine, though, because my isolation taught me how to be content being alone. I wasn't the only one either. There was also bitter Marie. We became friends shortly after Trista and Evangeline left me. To be honest, I never really noticed Marie before. She always sat in the corner and literally never talked. Unless a teacher called on her, she buried her head in her notebook. Marie had some skin condition that made red sores appear all over her face. She told me about how it got worse every year, and it was only that year that she started trying to cover it up with makeup. It mostly worked because a few other girls had started experimenting with makeup too. For those few others, it was just a little bit here and there to cover up minor blemishes. Except Marie's wasn't acne. It wouldn't go away when she got older. She'd have to live for it for the rest of her life. Our relationship felt more like a matter of convenience than anything else. We formally met on the swing set, the one place in the playground where none of the cool kids played. Before, when I had people to play with, the swing set was the last thing on my mind. Anyone who wanted to enjoy recess fought over space on the jungle gym. If there was no space there, they still had 3 big slides or the monkey bars to play on. All of those were preferable to the swings. But my friends were gone then. I deserved the loneliness. I almost felt as though I'd earned it, as though being alone was somehow a prize unto itself. I wanted friends. I wanted people to look beyond the average face they held in such esteem. As much as I wanted it, I knew better. I wouldn't find friendship in any of the people at school. Being alone was my only option. The first time I found Maria on the playground, she swung on the far end. There were 5 swings total, each fastened to the support beam with thick cords. We'd never spoken before, and I was still getting over losing my only 2 friends, so I sat completely opposite of her. We swung apart for a week. By then, I'd mostly gotten over Trista and Evangeline leaving me, so each day after I moved 1 swing over until the day I sat right next to her. We swung together, but neither of us talked because it was too awkward to admit we didn't belong anywhere else. We exchanged glasses, all the time though, and always gave each other a friendly nod when we met out there. The Stars Within Us by Ayame Atakpa. Wonderful, wonderful, lovely piece. Thank you so much for submitting it. That was a joy to read. And now we have another promo. For the next 8 minutes or so, we will do a little bit more talking. I'll look at a few of your comments. After that, I am reading for 3 more offers. Thank the Lord, I'm losing my voice a little bit. I think the 15, 16 or so authors will definitely be a tradition. It's more about the time frame, not about the number of people. Thank you to everyone who has been a part of the show so far. Can everybody still hear me okay? Is everybody enjoying the show? Everybody enjoying the readings? Yes, thank you to everyone who contributed. And for those who are tuning in, thank you for everybody who's still here. Everybody who's still here, I am thinking that I'm loving these comments. I'm loving these comments. Everybody is just making this show special tonight. I love these comments. You guys are great. By the way, your tags are flashing across the screen on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, but they're not showing on Instagram. So, yes, Nick, I see you. You're there. I know I'm going to be talking about you in just a moment. But please do make sure that if you are mingling in the comment section, you're letting people know where to follow you. You know, the real purpose of live readings is to draw attention to all of you. So definitely mingle and let people know where to follow you. And thank you for joining us too. Yeah, please follow us. We are One True Promotion, at One True Promotion. Andrew is running the show behind the scenes, at Andrew Bass 24, author of the Sanguinary Song. More Sanguinary Song, at Andrew Bass 24. I'm Alec Pangia, at Alec Pangia Author. Please follow me if you want these shows. Please follow at Nick Geo Arts. That's Nicholas Georgel. He is our next reader, our next guest reader. And please do follow at Tangible Voices Podcast. That is my fiance, Carrie Walden, who is a big part of our team, our creative consultant, and one of our biggest supporters, one of the best talents we have in our entire community. Please give her a follow, Tangible Voices Podcast. Let's talk about Nicholas Georgel. Nicholas Georgel was the first person, just before Carrie, that we officially added to our roster as an administrator at One True Promotion. Happened around the same time. They had both been contributing. Nick is our arts and media director. You have seen him. He has been on Writing Sprints, Andrew's show, multiple times. He usually brings his artwork and sketches something out of his portfolio. He aims the camera down on his desk and he shows the artwork live, which is super, super cool. I love when I'm able to watch Writing Sprints and I'm able to see Nick there. He's made the majority of his appearances there, but he's also been a guest on Drop a Line. And he talks a lot about his experiences as an author and an artist. He is currently producing artwork that he sells at events, tabling events for One True Promotion. He's also working on art for Calipar, just like Cameron and Michaela, which is awesome. He recently released a piece that you have definitely seen. I hope that you are on Facebook right now, because if you are, or YouTube or Twitch, because you are about to see that piece of art in Nick's promo. Take it away, Andrew. That was a great promo, wasn't it? And I'm not tooting my own horn. I love what Nick has to offer. I love what I was able to put into that promo, because Nick is just, that awesome. I love his work on Calipar. He captured a scene, the very first action scene from the Calipar, which I intend to make a long series. So I was very happy with that piece of the gentleman holding the pink sword. That scene is just etched into my mind. You'll read about it in great detail in the Calipar. Nick doesn't usually do commissions, he tells me. However, he did make an exception for me. And I really do want to encourage you to follow his art and his portfolio, because he is the absolute man. And he's been a great member of One True Promotion. It's been fascinating to hear about his process. It's been fascinating to hear about how he got into his book. And we have a couple minutes left until he joins us as a live guest and does his own reading of Life is Death, the Death of Earth. So, Nick, thank you again for your contributions to Calipar, your contributions to One True Promotion. And frankly, I would like to invite you to go live with me right now. The link to StreamYard should be in your email currently. I would love for you to join us now, and you could even introduce yourself. Your reading is in 3 minutes at the 10 o'clock mark. Or 2 minutes, actually. I misread the clock there. Here he is on Instagram. And there he is on StreamYard. Oh, I like that efficiency there. Look at this guy go. All right. He is just the man every time. And we will bring him on the rest. There he is.
Hey, Alec.
Oh,
It's going good. Let me mute my computer.
yeah, you're good, man. You're good. I heard it start, but then I heard it go away.
Yeah, I think I figured out how the best way to do this. I got AirPods for Instagram and StreamYard going.
There you go, my man.
No, thank you for the promo, and I'm glad to be a part of it, Alec. And I was happy to work on your piece. It was a challenge. It was a bit of a challenge, but it's
I'm challenging. I tell you, when you work for me, I make you work.
Yes, you did. But no, I'm happy with how it turned out. Got me testing my moose skills with that.
That was a good moose. I love that moose.
Thank you. No, it was fun. The piece was fun, and honestly, I am looking forward to more of Calipar. It's funny because I know you're working on it, and you're in the early stages, but getting to do the art piece, it's kind of like it feels like I'm part of the behind the scenes a little bit as you get toward the end there.
More than kinda. Nick, it's great to have you a part of it, man. And I tell you, it's been a pleasure to have you in general. I'm glad that you're joining the show. So you are the man. I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute and leave you to run the show for the next 10 minutes. Enjoy yourself, my friend.
Yeah, rest your voice.
You got it.
All right, everybody. So I am going to be reading an excerpt from my first novel, which was published in 2015. It's Life is Death, the Death of Earth. I'll show you on Instagram there. Oh, there it is. So I'll do a really quick synopsis. It's about a boy named Daichi who finds out he is a death. And a death has to stabilize the world population with a certain power they're given. It's one of the 4 elements: fire, earth, water, and air. And for context, the section I'm going to read for you is when Daichi finds out he is being made a death. The entrance door seemed to echo when it shut. It was quiet around the grounds of the school, so quiet all you could hear was the stirring of the cherry blossom trees in the wind. All the students left to go home already, save for Daichi, who was the last to leave. He hung his head and sighed as he walked down the sidewalk, the soft sound of the trees fading away behind him. When he reached his house, he walked upstairs to his room and picked up the framed picture of his parents, then sat on his bed, staring at the picture gloomily. "What do you guys think?" he asked. "Should I have just said yes, or did I do the right thing?" A glare washed over the photo. Outside, the sun was setting. The light shining through the window cast a large shadow of Daichi on the floor. Out of the corner of his eye, Daichi saw something. Out of the corner of his eye, Daichi saw something move. He put down the picture, and to his horror, there was a dark figure standing in the center of the room, on top of his shadow. Daichi dropped the picture and scrambled back on his bed in fear. Concealed in darkness, its body appeared completely black. It was bald and naked. However, there were no visible features on its body. The only exception was its cold white eyes, ominous like two headlights at the end of a dark tunnel. It was tall and slim, about 6 feet in height with no visible mouth. When it spoke, only its jaw moved. "Greetings, Daichi Hara," it said. Daichi's eyes looked like they were about to bulge out of his head. He was too scared to move, afraid it might kill him if he tried escaping. He had never seen anything like it before. "What the hell?" he muttered in wonder. "Is this real?" "I assure you, Daichi Hara, I'm just as real as you." It spoke in a serious and dignified manner, in a dark, full voice which penetrated the walls. Daichi eased forward and sat himself on the edge of the bed. Still unsure of what to make of this being, he asked, "Who are you? Why are you here?" "I cannot tell you who I am, but I shall tell you this." It raised its hand and pointed at Daichi. "You, Daichi Hara, have the most potential. I have chosen you to become my new death." "Death? You mean like the Grim Reaper?" "If that is what your culture refers to it as, then yes." The Shadow Man lowered its hand and stepped closer. "The sole purpose of a death is to save this world from overpopulation. It is a growing sickness that will one day consume this world. Right now, the estimated total of humans in this world is 7 billion. 12 years ago, the total was only 6 billion, and 200 years ago, a mere 1 billion. This world is swarming with humans, and the deaths exist to fix that." "Wait, are you saying I'd have to kill people?" "Yes. The population of this planet will never stop increasing. Life is slowly becoming scarce as, ironically, humans quickly grow. That is why I need you, Daichi Hara." Daichi crossed his eyebrows and scowled. "No!" he shouted. "I've heard enough." Daichi rose to his feet and confronted the Shadow Man. "Listen," he continued, "the population's going to increase no matter what. I don't know what it's like wherever you're from, but in this world, that's what humans do. Almost every human's dream is to get married and have children of their own, to have a family. That's just how we are." The Shadow Man's eyes narrowed into slits. Daichi gulped and shifted in place. He couldn't tell whether the Shadow Man was angered or impressed by what he had just said. "Before you so quickly refuse, Daichi Hara, at least let me offer my gift." Daichi raised an eyebrow. "What gift?" The Shadow Man smiled. "Immortality." Immortality? The Shadow Man's mouth crawled back into the empty space it once was. "Yes. Once you are made to death, your body will no longer age. Therefore, you cannot die." "Does this mean I'll be invincible?" "No. Your body will still be vulnerable, but your death powers will heal most injuries. Only those who possess the power of death can kill you." "So there are other deaths then?" "Bingo. There can only be 4 deaths at a time, one for each element. In order to kill in vast amounts, a death is given control of one of the 4 prime elements: fire, water, earth, and air. The deaths then utilize their power to stabilize the population. The deaths receive more power as they kill more people and can gain full mastery of their respective elements. Your element will be earth." Daichi stared tiredly. This was a lot for him to take in. The powers of a death are truly limitless, the Shadow Man continued. Tornadoes, tsunamis, forest fires, earthquakes, any natural disaster is at your disposal. Wait, so who are the other deaths? What are they like? No. The Shadow Man began to increase in size, growing taller to the point where he almost touched the ceiling. Daichi trembled in his shoes and stumbled back. He felt like he was the smallest thing in the room compared to the godlike figure looking down on him. Listen to me, Daichi Hara, boomed the Shadow Man, sounding much louder than before. Whatever you do, do not go looking for the other deaths. They can and will kill you. Daichi tilted his head back and responded, Yes, sir. Then the Shadow Man vanished. Daichi looked around. The room felt normal again. For a moment, he thought the Shadow Man had left for good. But his hopes were crushed when he heard a voice whisper into his ear. Now this is the important part. So listen closely. As a death, it is your duty to kill a total of 1,000 people per month for the rest of your existence. Fail to meet the quota, you die. So be diligent. A heavy silence fell upon the room. Daichi looked down and muttered, Once a death, always a death, huh? Correct. So, are you ready? Ready? Asked Daichi. Ready for what? The Shadow Man pointed at Daichi's face. Sparks of green energy emitted from his fingertip, dancing like electricity. To become a death. Daichi backed away and held up his hands. Wait, he protested. I never agreed to this. Don't I have a say? The Shadow Man chuckled, smiling his big, ferocious smile. I never said you had a choice in the matter. Before Daichi could attempt to escape, a jet of green energy shot from the Shadow Man's finger and struck Daichi in the face, blowing his hair back. There was a loud popping sound, like a rocket exploding, and the blast released a wave of energy through the air. The force of it knocked Daichi back so fast, he was knocked unconscious the moment his head hit the floor. Everything in the room was affected by the blast. His bed tipped over and strewed about the sheets, while pictures on the wall fell to the floor, shattering glass everywhere. Clouds of sawdust fluttered from the ceiling. Then there was a loud cracking sound, and the floorboards broke off, jutting upward. Meanwhile, Daichi lay unconscious on the floor, cuts on his head and tears in his uniform. The Shadow Man lowered his hand and stood there in the center of the room, unaffected by his own destruction. Outside, the sun was more than halfway below the horizon. A large shadow crept across the floor, consuming the Shadow Man's feet. He took one last look at Daichi, then the sun was gone, and the Shadow Man disappeared into the night. Daichi burst open his eyes and sat up in his bed. He immediately realized something was off. Last he remembered, everything in his room was destroyed by the Shadow Man. But when he looked around, not a single item was damaged or out of place. All his pictures were back on the wall, perfectly proportioned as if never touched, and there were no cracks in the walls, floor, or ceiling. Even his furniture appeared undamaged. Phew, Daichi sighed in relief. It was just a dream. He rose from his bed and put on his school clothes, then went to the bathroom to brush his teeth. Geez, that was one crazy dream last night. While yawning in the mirror, he noticed something under his left eye. At first, he thought it was a bit of dirt, but when he leaned in closer, he saw it was a mark of some sort. A small black triangle pointed downward. Probably a prank, he thought, figuring someone drew on his face while he was asleep. He picked up a washcloth and tried scrubbing it off with soap and water. But when he looked in the mirror, the mark was still there. No streaks or smears whatsoever. Putting it off as nothing, he grabbed his school bag and headed downstairs. No, he reassured himself. There's no way that could have been real. As soon as Daichi stepped out the front door, he froze in place. On the pathway stood a man he had never seen before. He was tall and in his mid-30s. He wore a dark, musty gray jacket with brown fleece around the collar and saggy, worn-out-looking jeans. He had a firm jawline with some stubble on his chin, and he had an old and stoic presence, even withered as he stared at Daichi with a tired look in his pale green eyes. He looked like a man who had been through a lot in his life, resembling an old American gangster with his slicked back brown hair and lit cigarette hanging from his mouth. But there was one thing about the stranger that made Daichi afraid. One feature that chilled him to the bone. Under the man's left eye were 2 black triangles pointed upward. And that's the book. Or that section.
Fabulous,
so you can,
fabulous.
yeah. So if you liked what you heard, you can buy this. This has been available on Amazon. You can get it Kindle digital version, or you can buy the paperback. You can either search Life is Death, The Death of Earth, but for best search results, I recommend searching my name, Nicholas Georgel. That will give you the book, spelled George with an L at the end there, and you will find it. I also have a link on my Instagram. There's a link tree. You can also get to it from there. So that was it.
Fabulous, fabulous. Nick, thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for reading. We love your book. I cannot wait to finish it. And it was a privilege to have you here on Live Readings. Thank you so much for joining us, friend.
Thank you, Alec. Thank you. Time to go now. I'll boot out.
See you next time. All right, all right, all right. That was Nicholas Georgel. And next, my friends, we have the amazing, the incomparable Ivy Now. This is Ladies, Ladies, a new story by Ivy Now. Do you swallow? Liz Chan asked. After 42 years of living in Canada, she was still unsure about certain cultural and class issues. No, you're not supposed to, whispered Carla. But help me, Lizzie. I don't want to spit out. I have paid good money for this. Me too, said Liz. Josh says you must. It's just for tasting. I tasted it. It's fine. Now I will swallow. Swallowing is good. Only if you are hungry. I am, said Carla. I am very hungry. After this, it's lunch, Liz assured her in a low voice. You know, when Alekos, said Carla. She gestured like she was thinking. He used to... Carla always began without any aim or ability to finish her sentences. Josh saved her. The need to complete her thoughts. He cleared his throat. The tour had begun. Wine tasting is like space travel. There is no end to it, said Josh. Carla sighed. Josh was a little guy, neat and slim with curly hair, almost like a golf player. In his late 30s, he was a professional private tour guide who had studied with 3 vineyards and run tasting seminars. Niagara-on-the-Lake is the loveliest town in Ontario, said Josh Bellum, who earlier had come to pick them up an $80,000 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter for their door-to-door service. We love wine, Liz said to Josh in the murk. That's right, agreed Carla. Drinking it, said Liz. We don't mean tasting it, said Carla. Peals of laughter. Josh fake laughed along, out of politeness. He'd probably heard it all before. Like a couple, Liz and Carla were able to finish each other's sentences, which could only come from a long time of drinking together, where comfort and closeness became a kind of spell, a mantra, an ethos. Ladies, ladies. Josh always said ladies twice, like he wasn't convinced one was enough. You'll find drinking isn't the reason why people come from all over the world to taste wine. It was a dream Carla had to fulfill, a 60th birthday treat. No, not a dream, more like a tightly wrapped gift box Carla had to deconstruct, thought Liz. One festooned with fancy braided details and so spectacular looking that the opening was bound to be more exciting than its contents. Liz didn't want to ruin it for her friend Carla, whom she'd met when she first came to Canada. No Chinese immigrant would go on wine tasting tour. It would be considered decadent, perplexing, and more so as most Chinese people didn't drink. As such, this trip was something she was doing for her own curiosity, to keep her friend company and also to help her gain confidence. Liz had never traveled without her husband, Coles. There was now so much social media and peer pressure to undergo transformation, do new things, discover yourself, and so on when you were middle-aged. Otherwise, you're a hosehead. Your brain rots, and then you die. Carla always had a smile for everyone. For the last year, all Carla had been talking about was this wine tour of the Niagara, and in fact had talked Liz into it. You would not have guessed Carla had turned 60. She had the excitement of a 4-year-old child awaiting her luxury dream doll birthday gift. Carla and Liz had previously not been into touring or tasting of any kind. All Liz's memories of their time together were eating and drinking. They wouldn't have had a clue what the bottle was called or noticed the label. Liz knew how to open a bottle from when she started working in a Chinese restaurant when she was a student at the University of Toronto. Liz had already gone through transformation, discovering herself, doing new things. First as an immigrant in Canada, secondly as a student of pharmacology, and thirdly, a wife and mom. And fourthly, a working wife and mom, and now postmenopausal dreamer. What would this period in life be called? No point asking Coles. He'd once said, "You want to do stuff? Do stuff. Don't bug me." He knew then that the time was coming. September was a good month, said Carla. The children would be back in college. She meant Liz's children. Carla was newly widowed. She had no children. She had almost got over her Greek husband Akekos, who died a half-year ago of alcohol-related poisoning. Occasionally, she would be choked up if she had to talk about him, hence the beginning and not the ending of her sentences. Since his death, she had read every book there was to read about alcohol. Before his illness, all wine tasted the same. She thought wine tasting meant it tasted like wine. But now, Carla had become a total expert, or rather, thought Liz, someone who could fake it and pass as a semi-expert. Her therapist agreed that this was a positive way of handling her grief. Gurgling, rattling, gargling, spitting, splashing, more off-key tuning, high, low. The proof of tasting was in the plumbing and drainage cacophony, amplified like it was a show. I've read the book, said Carla, and I memorized some of the terminology. I'm thinking tannings. She nodded sagely with a thoughtful hand gesture. It's tannings, corrected Liz. Uh-huh, said Carla. Okay, so tannins, said Josh, usually in darker dry reds, then they dry out the mouth like black tea. Acid, applicable to most wines. Body, all wines have some kind of body, be it heavy, medium, light, etc. Fruit, all wines also have fruit, expressing itself in some form, which reminds me, saying expressing is expected. But we will come to that later. Aroma, because this was a huge impact on flavor. Texture, the feel of the wine in your mouth, etc. He wagged his index and middle fingers to indicate punctuation, quotation marks, left parentheses, right parentheses. The trick is not to just say these words, continued Josh, handing out leaflets to everyone, but express them non-committally. So, let's practice a few key phrases, he suggested like an enthusiastic theater director. Who wants to go first? Interesting body, loved the texture, read out Carla in a flat tone. Noticing the impact of the acidity, another read, a gray-haired man in a green parka. Let me just stop us there, said Josh, interrupting the man. See, you're not saying what that impact is. You're saying there is one. Someone might follow up with, oh, I didn't get much acidity at all. And if you can't think of anything, you can say precisely and walk away. This confirms that you concur with your fellow taster, almost like experimental theater with an unscripted script. They both had taken time off from work. Liz started to look forward to the break as she had never been away from her husband and children before except for work. For her own 50th, she had done absolutely no celebration at all, except a quick Facebook announcement to say thanks, and that was because her friends had first wished her a happy Hawaii 5-0. It would have been rude not to reply. Someone liking her comments didn't seem to cut it. This Ontario trip would be also a treat for her. They had both been brought up frugal, Liz in Hong Kong and Carla in her native Toronto. They grew up in the 60s. They mended, sewed, cooked, understood the meaning of the phrase, to make do. They still did all the stuff plus way more. Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, blogging. Children used to take up Liz's time, but now blogging and taking photos did. Liz and her husband Coles ran a cycling and family lifestyle blog. Carla intended to write up this wine tasting for her blog, and it was with such irony that she started it during Alec's illness and carried on like it was her rehabilitation program. Liz knew that people who knew how to save also knew how to spend. An immigrant's way was and immigrants was a way of knowing what things were worth. You could call it intuition. And that is Ladies, by Ivy Now. If you want to read the whole story, please follow and support Ivy. Folks, we are almost through the show. We are now continuing with a very esteemed writer, that being Matthew Arnold Stern. Take it away, Andrew. We actually are going to pause real quick. We are going to cut the Instagram feed and bring it back up so that we don't get kicked off in the middle of the read. Hang tight, Matt. We're going to go ahead and move on to Matt. How's the audio? Am I good? And fixing up Instagram real quick. And we are 3, 2, 1, and back. Back on Instagram, back on all platforms. Folks, this is Matthew Arnold Stern. This is from Amiga by Matthew Arnold Stern. Hold on one second, ladies and gentlemen. I think we have a surprise reader. Let's see what we got here. This is a surprise on Instagram. Hello there, sir. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Just dropping in to say hello and looking forward to your reading, actually.
Thank you so much for stopping by, friend. It's great to see you. It's been a while.
Great. Yeah, it's great seeing you again, too.
Yeah, I got your book right here in my hand. I cannot wait. Cannot wait. This is amazing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to your reading.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for stopping by, Matt. It's great to see you. Matthew Arnold Stern, ladies and gentlemen. Matt, where can they follow you? Where can they support you?
Well, you can find Amiga on wherever you buy books. It's on Amazon. It's available on Kindle and Kindle Unlimited. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My handle for each of those is MAS Writer. That's MASWRITER. So look for me there.
All right, all right. Thank you for stopping by, Matt. We're going to get on with the reading. My man, take care of yourself. And, folks, without further ado, Amiga. Chapter 1, July 1985. He picked up the blue linen paper. Miss Rodriguez? Laura? I smiled. My faculty advisor taught me to smile at interviews. After 2 months of interviewing, I had been in enough beige, aluminum, and glass conference rooms and sat in enough knockoff Herman Miller chairs that smiling started to seem natural. The offices looked the same. So did the managers who interviewed me. The men, and they were always men, wore ties. Wide, conservative, striped, and usually in beige and brown tones. That was the type of tie worn by the man who picked up my resume. He introduced himself as Doug Stalley. He was the lead programmer. His tie was crooked and loose. He was probably going to yank it off and toss it in a desk drawer as soon as my interview was finished. He had a wispy blonde mustache and wore oversized glasses with thick, smudged lenses. He introduced the other men. Jim Fowler was the manager of the programming department. He also wore a loose beige tie and an ill-fitting brown sports coat. At the end was Stephen McGregor, the director of engineering. I could tell he was a director because he wore a proper navy blue suit jacket and a yellow power tie with small navy blue designs. Seated next to me was the HR representative, Louis Stansfield. Her oversized gold loop earrings nearly brushed against the inflated shoulder pads of her aggressively cobalt blue dress. It says you have a master's degree in computer science from Cal State Northridge. Doug spoke slowly, and methodically. Yes, I graduated in May, magna cum laude. I left that out in my first few interviews. I never felt comfortable about tooting my own horn, even though my faculty advisor gave me tips on how to do it without sounding like bragging. I see. Doug didn't look up from the paper. He seemed unimpressed. I straightened my glasses. My thesis was on managing local memory when processing high-resolution graphics on modern personal computers. I showed how the Motorola 68000 is the best microprocessor available today for handling such. Jim interrupted. Do you have any work experience? Yes. I kept smiling and sat up straighter. I worked in the computer lab on campus. I helped students with projects and assisted with upgrading our 3270 terminals to IBM PCs. And any professional programming experience? During summers, I worked in the computer department at West Valley Savings and Loan. I turned to Doug and noticed he hadn't looked up from my resume. I have that listed under work experience. Jim continued. What did you do there? I maintained accounting programs developed in COBOL and IBM System 370, as well as creating an interface with the Diebold TABS 9000 series ATM. By creating the interface in-house, the bank saved thousands over hiring a consultant. You assisted a programmer? I wrote the interface myself. Jim stared at me. I couldn't tell if he was impressed or if he couldn't believe that a 24-year-old could have created such a complete mission-critical ATM interface herself. Actually, I was 21 when I wrote it. I didn't tell them that, or why I felt so motivated to create a way people could bank without seeing a teller. It might have helped if I mentioned those things because the men didn't seem that interested with anything I've said so far. Doug kept staring at my resume. Stephen, who hadn't said anything so far, seemed focused on my breasts. Pardon me. Doug's eyes moved to the top of the paper. It says you live in Reseda? Is that in LA somewhere? Yes, but I'm planning to move to the area if I'm hired. I'm staying with a friend in San Rafael in the meantime. You're not looking for a relocation package, are you? The way Jim asked it, I assumed one wasn't available. No, I kept smiling. I'm excited about moving to Silicon Valley. In the computer industry, that's where the action is. It looks like you received an impressive number of awards, Doug said, the first positive thing about me in the interview, but he spoke in his flat, methodical voice. You won a 2,500 scholarship from SHPE. What's that? Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. Then Stephen blurted out the first thing he said in the interview. Are you an American citizen? My back stiffened. I took a small and silent breath. Yes. In fact, my father served in Vietnam. He died in combat. Doug looked up from my resume. The room fell silent. I may have won my self-respect, but I knew I lost the job. Louise escorted me out of the conference room. When we were far enough away, she put her arm, Louise escorted me out of the conference room. When we were far enough away, she put her arm around my shoulders and pulled me close. Laura, her voice was nasal and condescending, let me give you some advice, as one working girl to another. She stopped and let go of me. I turned towards her. She grinned tightly. Men like girls who are smart, but not too smart, and certainly not as smart as they are. And men don't like a girl who tells them they're wrong. There aren't too many girls in computer programming, so you should be very careful about how you present yourself, especially a girl like you, Miss Rodriguez. Her curt tone emphasized the Spanishness of my name. I stood silently in the hallway. I would walk out of that place without a job or my dignity. One other thing. She looked down at my black dress slacks. Wear a skirt. They say the Golden Gate Bridge is romantic, but it felt less romantic each time I sat in the massive cars, inching towards those orange Art Deco towers. I went through all of the interviews in all of the beige conference rooms with beige men. I did everything my faculty advisor told me to do. I checked and rechecked my resume for typos. I focused on my work experience. I treaded the careful boundary between selling myself and bragging. I focused on results from my work experience. What was I missing besides a penis? Amiga, ladies and gents, all y'all, if you like Matthew Arnold Stern's work, like I do, please check him out at MAS Writer and at his website. And finally, we have arrived at our final author of the night. This has been such a journey. I'm so glad you've all been on it with me. Folks, I am very, very excited to introduce this last author and to read her work. She has sent me a short story that I have never read before, even though I gave her novel a 5-star review. Folks, we conclude with Nicolette Beebe. Take it away, Andrew. This is Watchtower by Nicolette Beebe. In the heart of the graveyard, I stood beside a silent little girl. Dense fog rolled over the naked trees and devoured us within minutes. A hollowing wind encompassed the bleak surroundings as shadows jumped back into the dead of night. Though the little girl and I were strangers, she led me here, to the graveyard's brick watchtower. She raised a pointed index finger to the cylindrical room on the 10th story of the gray, crumbling tower. The ache in my neck lasted even after I brought my head back down. I took in a breath of the thick, misty air and relaxed my eyes on her pale face and jet black hair that resembled streams of bleeding ink. Her pastel pink dress remained perfectly still in the breeze, while her onyx-studded eyes stayed transfixed on the top story. "Is that where you want me to go?" I asked, pulling up the hood to my jacket. The little girl didn't answer. She didn't blink. She simply pointed. With feet made of lead, I reluctantly stepped toward the wooden door of the watchtower with the expectation of the unknown seeping down my back in waves of unearthly chills. This little girl was my first encounter, and I couldn't say that I didn't bring it upon myself. This step was actually accepting what I had gotten myself into. The rotting grass sunk beneath the weight of my boots as they treaded closer. I turned the rusted doorknob and plodded in. The stale air collected in a mugginess that stained my legs with its acrid scent and clung to my skin. Only a few flickering lanterns illuminated the darkness of the cinder-blocked walls. The only place to go was up a rickety staircase constructed out of aged wood that splintered and frayed at the edges. It traveled to the 10th story in a spiral, leaving the center of the tower open. The first step on the stairs broke with the weight of my body, and I grabbed onto the wooden railing for balance. The need to escape was a fleeting thought that was crushed by the unwavering reminder that it was not an option. I took my second step. There was a heaviness about the atmosphere that ached in my leg muscles as I reached the 3rd story. The heat turned unbearable when I hit the 5th story. The lighting dimmed while climbing to the 9th. Then I heard it. Faint, muffled voices. 2 of them just above my head. Yelling, pleading, struggling. My breathing hitched, stopping short until the thickness of the air shoved its way down my throat. I leaned over the railing to see who was above me. In a fast spurt of motion, the little girl's cotton candy pink dress flashed before my face as I watched the fabric wave through the opening in the tower and plummet to the cemented ground. I gasped, reaching my hands out to catch her, knowing it was too late when her shrill scream lengthened to a low, fading echo below me. But it was all I could do. Reach. My line of vision dropped, watching her petite body smack the ground. Her limbs stilled in unnatural positions, and her eyes remained open, forever staring into nothing. Crimson blood pooled around her limp body, and her jet-black hair lay in shambles over her motionless face. I tore my eyes away from the gruesome scene and looked above to the 10th story for answers. I took one more step upward with my heart thrashing like a war drum, and my blood rushing like a raging river hurling toward the ocean. The slapping sound of the little girl's body against the pavement replayed like an endless haunting in my ears. A man's voice mumbled again as his footsteps pounded on the stairs. He was making his way down, and so did I, skipping as many steps as I could. "Shit!" he yelled on the stairs just above me. "Stupid!" This only fueled me, legs barreling toward the bottom. Now at the 2nd story, I jumped over 3 steps and the wooden planks gave way. My right foot slid through as jagged pieces scraped my calf. "Shit! Who's there? Miranda? That better be you!" the man boomed. His footsteps grew heftier as he marched faster. I pulled my leg out, not caring that the shards of wood punctured my skin on the way out, not caring about leaving my warm blood around the hole as evidence of my presence. Though my back was turned, I could sense he was less than 10 steps behind me. "Hey, You're not Miranda. Who the hell are you? What the hell do you think you're doing here? His gravel voice rasped as he pointed a stubby finger at me. I sprinted on my wobbly legs to the ground floor and burst out the door. In a sea of black and white smothering my vision, one saturated pink dress sharpened into view. My eyes connected with the little girl who still stood with her finger pointed, but instead of her finger pointing at the 10th story, it was down at the ground floor where her body rested. I ran past her as she spoke in a monotone voice, the words, "You didn't save me." Averting my eyes from her blank expression, I dove into the fog and tucked myself behind a gravestone to catch my breath and examine my throbbing leg. Into view came a pair of 2 small legs wearing white tights and the ending frill of a dress. I lifted my gaze, training my eyes on her head, contorting in several directions like she was smacking against the pavement again. Then she stilled and her head hung down, straight tendrils of hair swaying over her eyes, angrier. Her jaw unhinged and her nose crinkled as she gawked at me with onyx eyes, screaming, "I called for you, and you didn't save me." The heartbreak over not saving her, split me into millions of fragments. Tears rode to my eyes, blurring her face into an even more monstrous distortion of reality. "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," I sobbed, not knowing what to do or how to make all this go away. This should have never been my responsibility. With my words, she stopped, straightened her spine, and reverted back to her blank expression. Her gaze turned to the headstone that was blank. The little girl dropped to her knees and pulled her hands up to touch the flat, cold stone. When her hands fell to her side, the headstone read, "Miranda Booker, 1993 to 2000. Miranda's eyes riveted on me and repeated, "He will find you. He always does. He will find you. He always does. He will find you. He always does." She repeated as she disappeared into the ground. The gravel voice boomed, come out, wherever you are." And that was Watchtower by Nicolette Beebe. With a few minutes to spare. You know what? Since we have a few minutes left on Nicolette's clock, I am actually going to do an extra reading of Mark King by the same person, which is a book I recently finished, thoroughly enjoyed, and I will share a little bit of why I enjoyed it. This is Chapter 1 of Mark King. Outside the camp was an ink-colored wasteland of rotting trees that only the brave and the desperate dared to travel through. Black mold overpowered the endless forest, breaking off branches in brittle clumps and puffing into clouds of powdered ash. And every day it worsened. That was why Dexter never bothered to look out the window to his right. He only sat in his wooden chair facing the door as he stroked his full beard. With an unfocused gaze on the knob, he waited for his 7-foot burly guard to climb the tower to him. Maybe one of the 6 filthy beds lining the curved wall would be occupied tonight. Even though the mattresses contained wet blots, bloodstains, and dirt patches, it was better than nothing. Thinking of the stories each held had him clenching his teeth, then his fists. The door burst open, and Zeke strode in, with a person in each hand. Dexter approached his guard, who wore similar garments as him, black leather pants with ribbing on the knees, and lace boots. While Zeke had on a tunic with the sleeves ripped off, Dexter wore an army jacket that hung to above his knees and was complete with cargo pockets. "What do you have for me?" Zeke's left hand held a scrawny man, looking sickly and pale. In his right was a young woman, clothes tattered, eyes sunken and teary. Straight black hair fell haphazardly over her left eye. "I got an infected." He shook the man. "And an offering. Her name's Jane." Zeke nodded his head toward the woman. Dexter trained his eyes on the ill man, who babbled with a bleary stare. The infection must have been infiltrating his body for weeks. Fortunately, none of his senses were functional enough for him to piece together what Dexter was obligated to do. There was a certain type of peace he felt when putting the infected out of their misery. It was harsh, but merciful. He reached under his chair and freed a steak knife from the magnetic strip beneath. What are you doing?" Jane questioned. Dexter jabbed the blade into the side of the man's neck, slicing around his throat. The infected man fell, gurgling, as blood sprayed from the gash and spurted from his mouth. Jane screamed in an hysterical fit, thrashing to escape Zeke's grip as she clamored for the man. "Dad! No! Dad!" The words echoed in Dexter's ear, causing his already tormented heart to fragment. His eyes shot to Jane, face red and cheeks soaked in tears. Damn it, Zeke! You didn't tell me they were related? Zeke shrugged, letting his eyelids fall halfway. Didn't know. And that is the first 2 pages of Mark King by Nicolette Beebe. And that concludes our lineup for this evening. Andrew, my friend, you are off the hook. Thank you for running the show behind the scenes, buddy. Everybody, thank you for tuning in on Facebook and on Instagram. Thank you especially to the Instagrammers who joined us. The rest of the show is going to continue on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We are going to close down Instagram for this evening. So if you're watching on Instagram, hop on over to Facebook or YouTube or Twitch, and you can participate in the raffle. I'll be asking you to comment on the Facebook video. Just go to Alec Pangia Author. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Instagram, good night. And over here on Facebook, we are going to play a little promo for my show, which is Drop a Line. And one more. Alrighty, and my question is this. Who's still here? Kira, you still here? Brielle, you still here? Who's still here? Andrew's still here. Who else is here? Let me know who's still here, who's still watching. If you are still here, if you are still watching, then you have just entered the raffle. It's a quick raffle. Then I'll let everybody get to bed. But I want somebody to have the chance to win a free copy of Barker's Rules. Come on, who's here? Who's here? Who's here? Who's here? Joey's here. Hello, Joey. Yes, yes. Bark, bark, bark. Good to see you. Good to see you. Brielle is here. All right. Good, 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 good. Who else is here? I know somebody's still here. I know it really was a great, great lineup tonight. You know, this is kind of the conversational after portion of the show. I'm going to thank everybody, and then I'm going to play all those promos over again, which is why there was little reason to continue on Instagram. But yeah, I would really love to know who's out there. Brielle, it looks like you might be the only raffle contender, and you already have your copy of Barker's Rules, so that's kind of an awkward situation, isn't it? It's cool, though. I'll send you another one if you win the raffle. That's totally fine. Kira's here. Okay, we got 2 competitors. That's good. At least 2. All right, and you know what? We'll throw Andrew in there just for the fun of it because Andrew's here. And by the way, if anybody would like to participate in the raffle after the fact in the comment section tomorrow, you are more than welcome to leave a comment, and I'll send out another copy of Barker's Rules. What the heck? I'll send out 2 instead of just 1. We all love each other here. Christmas is coming. I'll be in the giving mood, right? I don't know what I'm doing. I need to go to bed. All right, folks, here's the deal. I would like you, if you have not read Barker's Rules, to write me your prediction about what Barker's Rules is about. And if you've never heard of Barker's Rules, you can go ahead and mosey over to my Amazon.com and read the description, and you can give me one prediction for what happens. One prediction about what's going to happen in the story. And if I like your answer, you get a copy. Isn't that a great deal? So I'm going to let you all think about that for a little while. Here's the deal. We are going to just say thank you really quick. This was an amazing stream. Thank you to all the authors and poets who came out. I had an absolute blast. And I really do want everybody to go and follow their accounts and look at their amazing artwork and look at their amazing prose, their amazing verse, and to make sure that they are on your radar when they release a new book. So I'm going to give Andrew a break, and I am going to go ahead and start playing these videos over again in the order that you saw them. So from the top, from James Ellerby all the way to Nicolette, these were our guests for this evening. I will be with you again shortly. And thank you very much to Sam Rubenstein. We do not have a promo video for him tonight. We certainly will next time. But thank you very much again, Sam, for coming on and reading for us. Go follow Samuel L. Rubenstein. He is a poet with which we will be collaborating with many, many more times. So thank you again, Sam. And next up, of course, was Mr. Andrew Bast. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you to all our poets. Thank you to Sam. Thank you to Alexis. And now here is the rest of the lineup as they appeared. And we'll be back shortly with our raffle winner. And that, again, was our lineup for tonight's live readings. Please, if you didn't take down that information, watch again, and please go follow all of them. It would mean a lot to me and to Andrew and to One True Promotion if everybody who came out tonight got a boost in followers as a result of this. Thank you all again for being here. I would like to announce that Kira Elise is our raffle winner for giving an awesome answer, for staying for the whole thing, and for giving an awesome answer to the question posed, which was what happens in Barker's Rules. I'm actually going to read it. It does seem as though Melanie is falling into a state of Stockholm Syndrome. Perhaps something happens in the novel to shift her thinking, and she finds a way around or through Barker's 3 rules. If not, I believe she's more likely in danger. Ha ha. And Barker, too, would say, ha ha. That is a good prediction. I can neither confirm nor deny, but you have a very astute impression of Barker's Rules, and I would like to congratulate you by sending you a free copy. Consider it a Christmas present. Congratulations to our winner. Thank you for staying for the whole stream. Thank you to everybody who came out. This was live readings. This was amazing. Thank you so much. Our next show will be February 2nd. We are going to just keep the show going. Every 2 months, there's going to be another one. So thank you, Kira. Thank you, Brielle. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andrew. We are just going to play out a couple of promos that advertise the rest of One True Promotion shows. And after that, we are going to say goodnight. So we are One True Promotion. This is live readings. We do drop a line. We do writing sprints. And here are promos for both of those. And that is our show. Thank you all again, and good night.